Observations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, Imagination Connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of cinema and sci-fi, your archbishop of Banterbury, your evangelist of the imagination, and of course, as John Campion once called me, your existential Mr. Rogers. Robert Meyer Burnett, don't quite know what that means yet, but this is Robservations episode number 632. This is the show about something. I have a wide variety of subjects to discuss with you today. I've got a lot of letters from people, commentary. It should be an interesting show. It looks like I'm on a boat because I knocked my camera over. I got to rejigger all this stuff in here. It's kind of a mess. I feel like if I could get the background to move, it'd kind of be cool. But anyway, let me just go into where everything's the way it's supposed to be, although it's a little bit messy. There's a couple of stories that I wanted to talk about. The first is, of course, as many people might have heard, I was reporting how Dr. Seuss himself, Theodore Gissel, Dr. Seuss was going to get canceled. And I did a story on it just not 2 days ago. And today, lo and behold, 6 Dr. Seuss books won't be published anymore for racist images. People writing in saying, well, Rob, the books aren't canceled. Only they're just not part of this celebration. Days later, 6 Dr. Seuss books won't be published for racist images. I didn't even set this up yet, but I think I can just jump in here and show you. Why not show you this story? And let's see if I can get and jump into it, and I can read it. We can read it with you. Let's see. There it is. Hey, look at that. Here is the story. I've got it up here so we can look at it together. Here is the story. 6 Dr. Seuss books won't be published for racist images. 6 Dr. Seuss books, including And to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street and If I Ran the Zoo, will stop being published because of racist and insensitive imagery. The business that preserves and protects the author's legacy said on Tuesday. These books portray people in ways that are hurtful and wrong, Dr. Seuss Enterprises told the Associated Press. This is his own company, Dr. Seuss's. He's not here with us anymore, but the company set up to oversee his works. In a statement that coincided with the late author and illustrator's birthday, ceasing sales of these books is only part of our commitment and our broader plan to ensure Dr. Seuss Enterprises catalog represents and supports all communities and families, it said. The other books affected are McGilligan's Pool, On Beyond Zebra, Scrambled Eggs Super, and The Cat's Quizzer. The decision to cease publication and sales of these books was made last year after months of discussion in the company, which was founded by the Seuss family, told the AP, the Associated Press. Dr. Seuss Enterprises listened and took feedback from our audiences, including teachers, academics, and specialists, oh boy, in the field as part of our review process. We then worked with a panel of experts, including educators, to review our catalog of titles, it said. And to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street, an Asian person is portrayed wearing a conical hat, holding chopsticks, and eating from a bowl. Let me read that again. An Asian person is portrayed wearing a conical hat, holding chopsticks, and eating from a bowl. Am I missing something? I've been to South Korea. Have not been to China or Japan yet. Can't wait to go. But maybe I'm just culturally insensitive. But okay, let's ban the book because of that. Let's get rid of that book. If I Ran the Zoo includes a drawing of 2 barefooted African men wearing what appear to be grass skirts with their hair tied above their heads. Books by Dr. Seuss, who was born Theodore Seuss Gissel, I think, in Springfield, Massachusetts on March 2nd, 1904, a time when, of course, race relations in America were open and honest and everybody had equity everywhere they went, have been translated into dozens of languages as well as in Braille and are sold in more than 100 countries. He died in 1991. He remains popular, earning an estimated $33 million before taxes in 2020, up from just $9.5 million 5 years ago, the company said. Forbes listed him number 2 on its highest-paid dead celebrities of 2020, behind only the late pop star Michael Jackson. Random House Children's Books, Dr. Seuss's publisher, issued a brief statement Tuesday. We respect the decision of Dr. Seuss Enterprises and the work of the panel that reviewed this content last year and their recommendation. As adored as Dr. Seuss is by millions around the world for the positive values in many of his works, including environmentalism and tolerance, there has been increasing criticism in recent years over the way blacks, Asians, and others are drawn in some of his most beloved children's books, as well as in his earlier advertising and propaganda illustrations. The National Education Association was founded Read Across America Day in 1998 and deliberately aligned it with Gissel's birthday, has for several years de-emphasized Seuss and encouraged more diverse reading lists for children. School districts across the country have also moved away from Dr. Seuss, prompting Loudoun County, Virginia schools just outside Washington, D.C. to douse rumors last month that they were banning the books entirely. Research in recent years has revealed strong racial undertones in many books written and illustrated by Dr. Seuss, the school district said in a statement. In 2017, a school librarian in Cambridge, Massachusetts, criticized a gift of 10 Seuss books from First Lady Melania Trump, saying many of his works were steeped in racist propaganda, caricatures, and harmful stereotypes. In 2018, a Dr. Seuss museum in his hometown of Springfield removed a mural that included an Asian stereotype. In The Cat in the Hat, one of Seuss's most popular books, has received criticism too, but will continue to be published for now. Dr. Seuss Enterprises, however, said it is committed to listening and learning and will continue to review our entire portfolio. The move to cease publication of the books drew immediate reaction on social media from those who called it another example of cancel culture. We've now got foundations book-burning the authors to whom they are dedicated. Well done, everyone, conservative commentator and author Ben Shapiro tweeted. Others approved the decision. The books we share with our children matter. Books shape their worldview and tell them how to relate to the people, places, and ideas around them. As grown-ups, we have to examine the worldview we are creating for our children, including carefully re-examining our favorites. Rebecca Fitzsimmons, an assistant teaching professor at Carnegie Mellon University, tweeted, numerous other popular children's series have been criticized in recent years for alleged racism. In the 2007 book, Should We Burn Babar?, the author and educator Herbert R. Cole contended that Babar the Elephant books were celebrations of colonialism because of how the title character leaves the jungle and later returns to civilize his fellow animals. One of the books, Babar's Travels, was removed from the shelves of a British library in 2012 because of its alleged stereotypes of Africans. Critics have also faulted the Curious George books for their premise of a white man bringing home a monkey from Africa. And Laura Ingalls Wilder's portrayal of Native Americans in her Little House on the Prairie novels have been faulted so often that the American Library Association removed her name in 2018 from a Lifetime Achievement Award it gives out each year. The association still gives out the Gissel Award for the most distinguished American book for beginning readers, published in English in the United States during the preceding year. Just a follow-up story to something I covered this weekend. And again, I'm not gonna go off on a rant here, but I just want to point out that it is incredibly disturbing to me to see that modern forces of today want to litigate or prosecute or, let's just face it, get rid of the works of our past. I don't care what kind of literature it is. Hitler wanted to get rid of a lot of the great works of art, calling it degenerate. And I think that we are in a very, precarious time in our cultural and social and our national history. And I think we have to decide who we are as people. And I think we really need to understand that history is horrible, awful, terrible, but also brought us to where we are right now. And this idea that we want to wipe away anything that might be at all maybe offensive to the sensibilities of today is wrong. And I would say the problem is not with the books of Dr. Seuss, and the problem is not with past racist attitudes, because as I've said on the show, go back far enough and all human beings have figured out a reason to hate every other human being that ever existed. The important thing is to learn from these things, acknowledge them, and move forward. The idea that we expect that we can scrub away our ugly history of hatred and horror that we visited upon one another is, to me, absurd. If anything, these are the things that should be discussed. The hows and the whys of genocide or racism, or why it is that groups of people hated other groups of people. Why is it that we apparently would rather pretend none of this happened? Let's scrub the historical records so we can, save the kids from what? The realities of life? The realities of things that they're going to be dealing with for the rest of their lives? All to, protect kids from the horrors that they're later going to face? I don't get it, to be honest. I really don't understand. And, when Dr. Seuss was born, he lived a very long life. The man was in his 60s, and we still had Jim Crow laws on the books in this country. I mean, the idea that we want to pretend like we weren't mean to each other, that people weren't lynched in the South. I mean, one day are we going to say that Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit might be too difficult for people to comprehend, so we're going to get rid of that too? Where does it end? Why is it that we're so afraid of our pasts? Why do we believe that people are so immature? Why are we infantilizing ourselves by pretending we cannot deal with our own past? Oh, it's too difficult. Safe spaces. I just want to be safe all the time. You know what? The world isn't safe. And you're not going to make it safe by getting rid of Dr. Seuss books and pretending like none of this happened. We need to be held accountable, as we need to be held accountable all the time, all day long, every day. There is never going to be true equity in our world if we can't acknowledge what came before. I don't understand why people have such a hard time doing that. Why do we not want to teach our children? We'd rather disappear things, wrong think, wrong speak, wrong illustrations, whatever. We'd rather disappear them and pretend they never existed, instead of learning from them, pointing to them and going, you know what? These things were problematic and here's why they were. And let's look at where we came from and where we should be going. But if we don't have that past to acknowledge, and nowadays with some of the cockamamie ideas of look, I believe in equality for people. I've said on the show repeatedly that each one of us, every single human being on this planet is unique. There's only one. Even with twins, they're not exactly identical, depending on how far you want to look. Every single one of us is unique in the universe. The fact that we hate one another for petty, superficial reasons, I don't get it. I don't get it. I grew up in a world where I like people, all kinds of people, of all shapes, size, colors, creeds. I don't care. I like people. And as somebody who is a futurist and believes that our future does mean we're going to travel amongst the stars. I think being an imagination connoisseur sort of, it's part of where we want to be, is that we're going to move forward as the human race into the cosmos. we move there together. We're all going to go together. We're not going to go, it's not going to be a certain racial group. It's going to be the human race. We're going to go together, each according to our strengths. And we all have strengths and weaknesses. Everyone is not equal. And when I mean everyone is not equal, people are different. That's what makes us great. We are not some homogenized, one-size-fits-all culture. Everybody's different. People are good at different things. If we were all the same, then what good would we be? That's what diversity is. Diversity is the wide range and crazy differences that we all have. And we should celebrate all of that. That's what's important. We don't all want to be the same. As human beings, I believe in having inalienable rights. I do believe that. But I want to live in a world where all of the crazy, talented, different, all the wackiness that we all have within us comes together to create something greater than the sum of our parts. That's what I like. That's what I've always liked. That's one of the things I find appealing about movie sets or any place where you go around the world and there's a group of people trying to work together to achieve one goal, whatever that might be. I love working with all different kinds of people. I found that whenever you have the more diverse the backgrounds of people that you're working with, the better off whatever you're working on tends to be, because you have so many different perspectives, making whatever you're doing stronger, greater than the sum of its parts. That's why diversity is so important. The more people, the more voices that are heard, the better off we all are going to be, because we have a greater understanding of who we are. That's why having people that are marginalized or never had a voice, that's why it's so important that they do have a voice. That's what all of this is about, to make sure that we are all heard, especially the people that haven't been heard enough. But if we are going to start getting rid of our past in some mistaken effort to try and pretend that we're not who we are, we will lose. We will lose. And this idea that children need to be protected from what? The past? They need to be protected from the thousands of years of history that they are now a part of is absurd. We need to be smarter, we need to be more mature, and we need to be able to handle difficult ideas, and we need to be able to explain these things to the newer generations. We need to be able to look back and be honest about where we came from and who we are and where we're going. And we're not going to do that by getting rid of our past. We're not absolved of our sins. You know, one of the things I liked about being Jewish was every year there's the Day of Atonement, where you have to go before God and basically say and admit all the things that you've done in the last year. Instead of going to confession, we have Day of Atonement. We have the Days of Awe. We got Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And in between are the Days of Awe. But then you have the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, where you have to go before God and say, okay, you know what I did. I know what I've done. But you have to acknowledge it before God. That's the whole point of it. And if we can't admit our mistakes or the horrors we visited upon one another, where are we going to go? Where are we going to be? I don't know. But getting rid of Dr. Seuss books is not the answer. As a matter of fact, getting rid of any books is not the answer. Or movies. I'm telling you, I've said on the show before, one day someone is going to get my Amazon list, my purchase list, my orders list from the last 20 years, and they're going to hold it against me. They're going to come after me and they're going to be like, you bought this book, you bought this movie, you bought this whatever I bought. Someone's going to say, Twisted Metal Black, you shouldn't have been playing that for the PlayStation 2. That game was anti-human or whatever. If we're going to allow this kind of stuff to happen, our future is bleak indeed, because we've already seen where it leads. Just thought I'd bring that up. On another note, I have another article that I want to share with you about the home video industry, my industry, the industry that we all know and we all love, especially if you watch Let's Get Physical Media, and it's changed pace. So what do you know? What do you know? Let's make sure I can get this and change it up. Oops, I missed this one. This article, oh, really? This article comes from Media Play News. And Media Play News often covers the home, well, they do. Not often, they do. That's what they do. They cover the home entertainment industry. And I thought that this was a really important article to cover because as a fan of physical media, one of the things that has happened with the studios, as physical media is becoming less and less important, one of the things that the studios have been doing is downsizing their home video divisions. People like George Feltenstein, who is one of the most knowledgeable executives about catalog titles, MGM, Warner Brothers, let go. These are people that have lifelong encyclopedic knowledge of film. Now, you would think in the age of streaming, where the studios are starting their own services, Paramount Plus starts what? On the 4th? You've got Peacock, which is Universal. You've got Disney Plus, which is Disney. HBO Max, which is Warner Brothers. Finally, these studios have a way to get their entire catalogs and movies out to the public. The entire rich history of a studio is now something that can be monetized. People will get around to watching everything that is on a streaming service. But what's been happening is, because of home video selling less and less and yet less, 20% drops over the years, that we're getting the people that worked in home video are being let go. Some of these people, like a guy like George Feltenstein, is one of the most knowledgeable film historians that also works in the business that we've ever seen. And they get let go. And yet we have streaming services where they're putting all the old catalog titles that are part of the studio's legacy up on streaming services, but there's nobody working anymore in home entertainment that knows what these things actually are. We're getting more and more, if you follow physical media releases, there's always more and more recalls about discs, things that are not correct, things that weren't done right, things that would have been caught before 20 years ago. These things never would have happened, but there's a lot going on, a lot of mistakes being made. So this article was in Media Play News yesterday. Let's give home entertainment teams the respect they deserve. Let's check this out, and maybe I can make you see this better. There you go. Here it is. One of the more disturbing trends in Hollywood is that while home entertainment teams played a key role in keeping the studios afloat during the height of the pandemic, they are now the target of consolidations and restructurings as studios seek to balance the books at a time when the theatrical business is just beginning to come back. What does it mean when we hear the studios are merging their home entertainment and theatrical teams? Invariably, it's the home entertainment staffers who are shown the door. Also a big mistake, as far as I'm concerned. Don't get me wrong, I get that consolidations and restructurings are good business in these challenging times. Hollywood took a huge hit last year when the movie theaters were shut down virtually overnight, and while PVOD has certainly proven itself a lifesaver, the revenues from movies premiering at home are hardly enough to make up for the millions of dollars in lost theatrical revenue. I'd say tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. We also have talented theatrical marketeers who all of a sudden found themselves with little to do. But can't there be some sort of balance? Why is that home entertainment teams are taking the biggest and sometimes the only hit? I think part of it is that traditionally theatrical has been seen as the A team. But as loath as I am to resort to tired cliches, that's akin to comparing apples with oranges. Home entertainment is a completely different ballgame. It's not a bunch of minor leaguers hoping to break into the majors. It's more like the difference between Broadway and Hollywood, between stage and screen. Two very different business models, two very different skill sets. And I should point out that some of the business world's top executives have come from the home video sector. Bob Chapek, who ran home video for the Walt Disney Company, is now CEO. Ted Sarandos, co-CEO of Netflix, used to work at a video chain, Video City. And let's not forget Mitch Lowe, a co-founder of Netflix and Redbox, who for years ran Video Droid, a video rental store in California's Bay Area, or Bill Mechanic, another Disney home video vet who later was tapped to lead the 20th Century Fox movie studio. But then again, home entertainment has never gotten the respect it deserves. 40 years ago, when the business was birthed, studios were hoping to sell their movies to consumers. But when enterprising retailers bought movies on videocassette and began renting them, instead, Hollywood had a cow. Studios began suing retailers, their best customers, and it was only when the High Court invoked the first sale doctrine, effectively allowing rentals, that grudging acceptance set in. Studios began hiring dedicated home video executives, mostly from the consumer packaged goods sides of the business. One prominent studio home video president had been a refrigerator salesman. As the business grew, the home video business generated more and more money for the studios, as well as incredible ingenuity, such as Disney's moratorium strategy and the Warner-led push toward revenue sharing. And yet the segment's leaders were still looked upon as second-class citizens, several rungs down the ladder from the vaunted theatrical executives who ran the studios. DVD brought a new level of respect to home entertainment. The new format, which shifted consumer habits from renting movies to buying them, brought in so much cash that the home entertainment executives were given a seat at the green-lighting table, particularly after home video revenues in 2001 for the first time ever exceeded theatrical revenues. But when disc sales leveled off in the mid-2000s and attempts to launch next-generation successors to DVD were bungled by a format war, home entertainment executives slowly began to be pushed out of the boardroom and into the back room. In the meantime, the caliber of home entertainment executives had improved significantly. When disc sales began to decline, home entertainment marketeers refused to accept defeat. They jumped on the nascent EST model and came up with all sorts of clever tactics, including early windows to grow the business. They adopted all the latest technologies from data analytics to VR and AR to promote new home entertainment releases. And when streaming began to take off, in part due to an early misstep in which studios sold or licensed their catalogs to Netflix, executives on the transactional side of the home entertainment business rallied. They did what they could to capitalize on their strengths, from forging new distribution deals, such as the Warner-Universal joint venture for physical product and Lionsgate's new deal with Sony Pictures, to issuing popular streaming series on discs, riding SVOD awareness much like the theatrical awareness. When the pandemic hit and theatrical business effectively ended, home entertainment teams swooped in and saved the day. They began mining catalogs for anniversary and seasonal reissues. They stepped up 4K Ultra HD release schedules. They were PVOD first responders, pivoting on short notice and essentially launching a brand new business until their theatrical counterparts could take over. And they perfected the art of out-of-the-box thinking, taking creativity and ingenuity to new heights. Universal Pictures Home Entertainment launched a Twitter catalog watch party series, which spotlighted several library classics and anniversary releases. Sony Pictures Home Entertainment also held social media watch-alongs, hosted by film talent and encouraging viewers to post reactions in real time on their social media accounts. Warner Brothers Home Entertainment held a virtual fan event celebrating all the superheroes and supervillains in the DC multiverse and featuring panels with talent and filmmakers, displays of cosplay and fan art, and more. Lionsgate struck a series of promotional partnerships with digital retailers, including a Best of Lionsgate catalog promotion with Microsoft Movies and TV that led to a triple-digit lift in sales. And Paramount Home Entertainment marketeers worked in tandem with digital retailers such as Fandango Now and Vudu to create curated promotions marketed primarily through Instagram and other social media channels. Home entertainment teams also worked tirelessly to create theatrical-style campaigns for PVOD releases such as Love and Monsters and Spell, including virtual junkets, New York Comic-Con panels, and more. Well, so you get the idea. And I understand that over, say, at HBO Max, they don't want to sell discs anymore. Warner Media, they don't want to sell. They figure that, wait a minute, why should we be selling discs? What we want is everybody to come over and subscribe to our channel, and they can see everything on HBO Max. Eventually, we're going to have the entire rich legacy of Warner Brothers up on the channel. The problem is they're getting rid of all the home video executives whose job it is to understand, well, what does Warner Brothers own? What do they actually have? What's in their, back catalog? One of my favorite home video companies right now is Warner Archive, which just got rid of George Feltenstein. But Warner Archive was actually putting out better discs. You wouldn't have maybe A-list theatrical titles, but the care that was put into Warner Archive's discs, they had better bit rates, so the movies looked better because they were able to do, it was a specialty market, and they knew what they were doing. I mean, my God, this month, one of my favorite TV movies when I was a kid, The Bermuda Depths, one of my favorite love stories, Jenny. Connie Selica, never looking better, in a movie that actually is about, well, it has a giant kaiju turtle in it, and it's a love story with a ghost. But that's neither here nor there. They're putting it out on Blu-ray this month. Thank God Warner Warner Archive exists. And you know what? They want to dismantle it. I don't know if HBO Max would ever put the Bermuda Depths up on its service. Hopefully, maybe one day they would. And maybe one day Warner Archive will make me a Blu-ray of Wild Wild Planet like I want. But still, you need people at these companies that know the catalog, that know the films that Warner Brothers owns, to preserve the legacy, to do it right, to go to, there's a motion picture imaging is right on the Warner Brothers backlot. You can drive right up. They do amazing work. They scan negative. They take care of things. I mean, the first time I ever saw a 4K image of anything, it was Cool Hand Luke. Believe it or not, Cool Hand Luke. I saw a restoration. It was projected, and I couldn't believe it. At MPI, they asked us. I was actually with Brian Singer. We were working on Superman Returns, and they asked us to come in a room and look, and they said, "What are you looking at?" And it looked like a film print being projected. And I'm like, nope, this is a 4K restoration of Cool Hand Luke. I was like, really? It was amazing. Never seen it before. Fantastic. But they're getting rid of these people. And the people that work in theatrical marketing and work in theatrical, like this article points out, know very little, usually, about the rich legacy of the very studios they work at, because that was not their job. It has nothing to do with their job. And how are you expected to maximize your back catalog, which in the era of streaming, all a studio is its legacy. And if you don't have people there who know what that legacy is, how are they supposed to preserve it? So it's unfortunate. I'd like to see, instead of downsizing people that are in charge of your rich historical legacy, your assets, why not keep those people? Find the money. Put those people back to work. They're out there on the front lines. They know how much your studio is worth because they know more about the back catalog than most of the people that work at the studio currently. So getting rid of them makes no sense. Makes no sense. Because I'll tell you something. The process by which you have to follow to transfer a movie, instead of transferring it to a physical media format, look, I'd like that, but if you're not going to do that, you still need to make those transfers. You still need to do the restorations properly because everything is going to be 4K, so it has to be done right. Why get rid of the people that know what they're doing, know how to oversee that? People in theatrical have no idea. So anyway, I want to share that with you. Which brings me to my headline article that I wanted to deal with here. In a blow, another blow to our beloved movie theaters, Disney CEO Bob Chapek hints at shorter theatrical windows for impatient customers, and I'm not sure there's going back. Dade Hayes published this yesterday at 5 in the afternoon. Disney CEO Bob Chapek suggested that the company will likely shrink the exclusive period in which films play only in theaters, though he didn't offer any specifics. Now, it's very important to understand that movie theaters exist because they know that a movie will be in theaters for a certain amount of time before it goes into home video or VOD or SVOD or whatever it is. And they rely on that. Sometimes, movies, we don't necessarily know about it here in LA because everyone goes to see movies the first and second weekends. But movies roll out across the country, a lot of independent theaters in smaller towns, and there are a lot of non-urban environments in the United States, a lot, that have mom and pop theaters or smaller theaters, or maybe they're mall theaters. So movies can tend to roll out in these areas over the course of months. Well, nowadays, they've pretty much got that theatrical window. It used to be a year, then it was 6 months. Now it's down to 3 months, 90 days. But that hurts the industry. That hurts the theatrical exhibition industry a great deal. Because if people know they can see a movie in 3 months, they'll wait. There's so much content that exists. Well, I've got to catch up on all my streaming series that I haven't quite binged on, so I can wait till whatever I have shows up on streaming. It's another blow. If consumers know that, they're not going to go see movie theaters they're not going to go to movie theaters and see movies when they come back. And that is a major bummer. The consumer is probably more impatient than they've ever been before, Bob Chapek said, of the market shifts during COVID-19, particularly since now they've had the luxury of an entire year of getting titles at home pretty much when they want them. So I'm not sure there's going back. But we certainly don't want to do anything like cut the legs off of theatrical exhibition. Moviegoers, he added, won't have much of a tolerance for a title, say, being out of theatrical for months and just sort of sitting there gathering dust before migrating to streaming or other windows. Chapek made the comments at a virtual investment conference hosted by Morgan Stanley. It was one of his few appearances outside of an official corporate function since becoming CEO about a year ago. During that brutal year, of course, Hollywood has contended with an existential crisis in the form of COVID-19. The virus decimated the box office and has left only 45% of North American theaters able to function more than a year into the pandemic. Total domestic box office of $11.4 billion in 2019 won't likely be equaled until 2022 or 2023. Most analysts believe, I would say, maybe not ever. But you never know. For Disney, which controls up to half the market and has released top blockbusters under the Marvel and Star Wars banners, is not a casual decision about how long to play films in theaters. Chapek noted that a middle path, the premier access simultaneous deployment of streaming and theaters, would remain a distribution option for the foreseeable future. On Friday, the animated feature Raya and the Last Dragon will go out via that method, costing $30 to subscribers of Disney+. No specific number of days in release was bandied about by Chapek or moderator Benjamin Swinburne, a media analyst at Morgan Stanley. Among other major studios, Warner Brothers has done away with theatrical exclusives altogether, while Paramount and Universal have either shrunk or announced plans to shrink the usual window from 74 days to more like 30 or 45. A month and a half between movie theaters and streaming. As he has in other public settings, Chapek noted the company's $11 billion grossing theatrical releases in 2019. That is a big deal to us, and that will continue to be a big deal to us, he said. At the same time, we realize that this is a very fluid situation. Addressing the streaming business more broadly, Chapek said, four-quadrant appeal has played a key role in the dynamic growth of Disney+. Since its launch in November of 2019, it is almost at 100 million subscribers in several dozen countries, and it's projected to clear 200 million over the next 3 years. Chapek said the fact that 50% of its subscribers globally do not have kids was a key driver and an unexpected one. What we didn't realize was the non-family appeal that a service like Disney Plus would have, he said. That's the big difference. As to the rest of the company's streaming portfolio, Chapek said its most recent edition, Star, which we don't have in the United States yet, will feature a lot of local language programming. The non-U.S. general entertainment service, which began its global rollout last week, will have 50 original series by fiscal 24, the exec said. 2024. Now, what I find really interesting about this, I think everybody watching me right now, if you were asked by, I don't know, Disney marketeers, hey, do you think that Disney Plus will have appeal for families that don't have children, or perhaps single individuals in their 20s and 30s? Disney didn't believe that it did. They believed, even Disney, with all of their wisdom and all of their knowledge, as Bob Chapek said, well, we didn't realize that how many people that didn't have kids would subscribe to their service. I think that's a very interesting thing for him to have said. And it also shows a huge lack of understanding of certain layers of corporate business practices, because they don't know. I would like to come back to the story in my own life, my own career. When I was working at Curdy Peller on Lord of the Rings, the 20th anniversary DVD of Tron was coming out, and I looked upon this. I was tasked by my boss, Michael Pellerin, because he knew me and he knew Michael had done an incredible Laserdisc release of Tron, but he was now focused on Lord of the Rings. And he said, Rob, I want you to take it over. I want you to do a documentary on the making of Tron. I said, great. And at the time, Disney said, well, according to our internal marketing research, no one's really interested in a big anniversary, a 20-year anniversary release of Tron. And I remember asking, well, who did you ask about that? And the answer I got was, well, we asked women with children children 5 and under. And it was right then that I knew, like, are you kidding me? And I realized they're doing what their demographics or their research or whatever tells them to do. But all of the people at Disney, all of the people, their conventional wisdom, everybody, I think some of the people, John Bernstein and David Jessen, and there were people in home video that knew better. But, you know, they also were beholden to their analytics. No one at Disney knew who to ask or what to ask to find out about whether or not there was any interest in a 20th anniversary definitive DVD release of Tron for 2002. So I was given a task and I was told, just give us between like 15 and 20 minutes. I ended up making an almost 90-minute feature-length documentary on the making of Tron that I decided that I wanted it to be a living Cinefex article. Now, I did that, and the 20th anniversary Tron DVD, I'm very proud of. Most of that material was ported over to the Blu-ray, so if you have the Blu-ray, you'll notice my documentary is in standard def. And back in the early aughts, they had like a televised show, like the Oscars or the Golden Globes, to give out awards for DVD special features. And that year, Tron was nominated, my documentary that I directed and edited with Rob Cipriano. I directed it myself, but Rob Cipriano and I edited the disc together because we were working so hard on other things. We were nominated for Best Retrospective Documentary of the Year. We lost to MASH, to Robert Altman's MASH, but that was okay. But and that Tron disc became their biggest selling catalog title of 2002. They had no idea. They had no idea the interest in Tron. And I was like, are you kidding? In our Nintendo PlayStation world, where everyone, boys and girls, have become gamers, you think people don't want to get Tron on DVD at the time? I mean, my God, everybody wanted Tron back then. They saw it as kids on cable growing up, but nobody at the corporate level even knew to ask that question. Home video knew, but this is the problem. We're now living in a world where even analytics, do you know who knows these things? People that have the experience. Do you know why Kevin Feige is able to do what he does? Because he knows, he has knowledge that he understands. He doesn't need analytics to tell him what's going to work. He lived it. He gained it through experience. I knew as a retailer in home video all the way back to 1980 when I was 13 years old. I worked in home video for 8 years, and then I've been working in home video for 25, making things. These are things that the corporations, with all of their analytics, don't know. That's why getting rid of people in the home video departments at studios is never necessarily a good thing. You're losing institutional knowledge, practical knowledge, and knowledge that was gained usually through love and personal interest of something, and people are bringing that knowledge to the fore or bringing the knowledge to the companies. You can't pay for that. You can't go to an Ivy League school and get tremendously educated and expect those people who know business to understand your entire back catalog. For that, you need true believers. You need people that know and love this stuff. And I feel that this is the one thing that corporate analytics and all that, all the marketing that you do, cannot take into consideration when you have employees or you have people that really know and love that material. This is not something that you should ever take for granted, nor should you get rid of it. And I feel that's what's happening. We're getting rid of people. Oh, they're old. We need younger people. I'm sorry. Look, I appreciate the younger perspective. You want to attract a younger audience. But when you're a studio that has a 100-year legacy of films, what is a young person going to do for you? Nothing. Nothing. You need both. You need veterans who love this stuff, and you need new young people who understand the current culture and the current tenor of what the youth culture is. But both can coexist. This idea that I don't even know where it comes from, but it's an important consideration to have. Now, also the idea that, look, I knew that movie theaters are probably, they're I don't know if they're going to exist. I thought they were going to exist my whole life. I don't know. But with theatrical windows being dwindled down to 30 or 45 days, how are theaters supposed to, what is the incentive? AMC spent $5 billion upgrading their theaters before the pandemic hit, and they've done a great job. Their Dolby cinemas that they teamed up with Dolby Labs are great places to see movies. And I would hate to see that opportunity to see a movie in a Dolby cinema to go away, but it'd be scary if it did. But I just wonder. I wonder what's going to happen. And Disney's not helping. And I get it. Disney is responding to the reality of the marketplace. And the reality is, would you rather stay home or would you rather pay the exorbitant prices? I'm mostly interested. The only thing I care about when I go to the movie theater is presentation. That's it. I want the best picture and sound that I can get that I can't get at home. And I get that at, say, the Chinese theater. It's great. That's what I want. And it would be sad for me if I couldn't get that anymore. Now, this last thing is a little change of pace. It's a little off-brand for me, but I thought it was important to talk about. And I read an interesting article, and I wanted to share it with you. And it has to do with math and the idea of math and how math is taught. Now, there is a lot of talk these days about equity and race and how do we make things accessible for everyone? How do we teach things and make sure that everyone's concerns are addressed? Well, I get that. I understand that people need to be treated well. Everybody wants to be treated like a human being. And that's, I think, the big I guess the issue of our time right now is to make sure that people of all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds are treated fairly, because so many people have not been over the years. That said, we now have, I think, something that is pernicious. I was thinking vermicious knids from the Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. Pernicious. It's happening through academia. We are having our methods of learning are being subverted, and I dare say destroyed by this. Well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and the idea to make everyone aware of systemic racism and things like that, all well and good, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. However, when you're dealing with certain subjects like, say, mathematics, let me just play something that I think I wanted to add to this, but I'm going to play this because I think it kind of it's something that I wanted to show you here. Take a gander at this.
This is dialectics. It's very simple dialectics, 1 through 9. No maybes, no supposes, no fractions. You can't travel in space. You can't go out into space, without, with fractions. What are you going to land on? 1/4, 3/8? What are you going to do when you go from here to Venus or something? That's dialectic physics, okay? Dialectic logic is there's only love and hate. You either love somebody or you hate them. Mark! You mutt. This is the way the fucking world ends. Look at this fucking shit we're in, man. Not with a bang. Whimper, and with a whimper, I'm fucking splitting, Jack.
That was, of course, a brief clip from Francis Coppola's masterpiece Apocalypse Now with Martin Sheen, Marlon Brando, and Dennis Hopper. But his point was that mathematics, dialectic, there's no room for ambiguity when you're dealing with math. But I read an interesting piece, and forgive me if I mispronounce this man's name, but let me just jump in here. His name is Sergio Kleinerman, and he is the Higgins Professor at Mathematics at Princeton University. And one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about this is obviously as a space nut, as I am, getting to space and other planets is all about math and science. There is no there's no room for racial bias or anything like that. You either get there or you don't, and you can't land on a fraction, and math does not care about your feelings. But anyway, I thought this was a really interesting piece that he wrote, and I would like to share it. There's no such thing as white math. I naively believed that STEM would be spared from the ideological takeover. I was wrong, says Princeton professor Sergio Kleinerman. And let me read this. Unfortunately, I'm looking at this now, and I'm how come I can't, for whatever reason, read what the article was that I wanted to read to you? Why is it not there? I'm looking at it. I can't seem to find it. Well, damn it. This is weird. Why is it not letting me read this? Have I done something wrong? Here we go. All I had to do is click on it. I am not at all qualified to introduce... Oh, I'm not going to read that. That's just your introduction. This is Mr. Kleinerman. In my position as a professor of mathematics at Princeton, I have witnessed the decline of universities and cultural institutions as they have embraced political ideology at the expense of rigorous scholarship. Until recently, this past summer really, I had naively thought that the STEM disciplines would be spared from this ideological takeover. I was wrong. Attempts to deconstruct mathematics, deny its objectivity, accuse it of racial bias, and infuse it with political ideology have become more and more common, perhaps even at your child's elementary school. This phenomenon is part of what has been dubbed the Great Awakening. As others have explained powerfully, the ideology incubated in academia where it indoctrinated plenty of bright minds. It then migrated through those true believers into our important cultural, religious, and political institutions, and now it is affecting some of the country's most prominent businesses. Unlike the traditional totalitarianism practiced by former communist countries like the Romania I grew up in, this version is soft. It enforces its ideology not by jailing dissenters or physically eliminating them, but by social shaming, mob punishment, guilt by association, and coerced speech. When it comes to education, I believe the woke ideology is even more harmful than old-fashioned communism. Communism had a strong sense of objective reality, anchored in the belief that humans are capable of discovering universal truths. It forcefully asserted, in fact, the absolute truth of dialectic materialism as revealed by its founders Marx, Engels, and Lenin. Communist ideology held science and mathematics in the highest regard, even though it often distorted the former for doctrinal reasons. Mathematics was largely immune to ideological pressure, and thus thrived in most communist countries. Being skilled in math was a source of great societal prestige for school children, and it was a great equalizer. Those from socioeconomically disadvantaged families had a chance to compete on equal footing with those from privileged ones. Like children all over the world, I was attracted to mathematics because of its formal beauty, the elegance and precision of its arguments, and the unique sense of achievement I was able to get by finding the right answer to a difficult problem. Mathematics also granted me an escape from the intoxicating daily drum of party propaganda, a refuge from the crushing atmosphere of political and ideological conformity. The woke ideology, on the other hand, treats both science and mathematics as social constructs and condemns the way they are practiced in research and teaching as manifestations of white supremacy, Eurocentrism, and post-colonialism. Take, for example, the recent educational program called A Pathway to Equitable Math Instruction, which, by the way, I'm going to put into the live chat right now. I encourage you all to look at this because it's amazing. There it is in the chat. The program is backed financially by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It counts amongst its partners the Lawrence Hall of Science at UC Berkeley, the California Math Project, the Association of California School Administrators, and the Los Angeles County Office of Education, among others. This is my state, people. This is where I live. It was recently sent to the Oregon teachers by the state's Department of Education. The program argues that white supremacy culture shows up in the classroom when the focus is on getting the right answer, or when students are required to show their work, while stipulating that the very concept of mathematics being purely objective is unequivocally false. The main goal of the program is to dismantle racism in mathematics instruction with the expressly political aim of engaging the socio-political turn in all aspects of education, including mathematics. In the past, I would have said that such statements could be ignored as too radical and absurd to merit refutation, but recent trends across the country suggest that we no longer have that luxury. So let me state the following for the record. Nothing in the history and current practice of mathematics justifies the notion that it is in any way different or dependent on the particular race or ethnic group engaged in it. For historical reasons, we often discuss contributions to the field of mathematics from the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Greeks, the Chinese, the Indians, and Arabs, and refer to them as distinct entities. They have all contributed through a unique cultural dialogue to the creation of a truly magnificent edifice accessible today to every man, woman on the planet. Though we pay tribute to the great historical figures who inform the practice of mathematics, the subject can be taught, and often is, with no reference to the individuals who have contributed to it. In that sense, it is uniquely universal. Schools throughout the world teach the same body of mathematics. They differ only by the methodology and intensity with which they instruct students. It is precisely this universality of math, together with the extraordinary ability of American universities to reward hard work and talent, that allowed me and so many other young scientists and mathematicians to come to this country and achieve success beyond our wildest dreams. The idea that focusing on getting the right answer is now considered among some self-described progressives a form of bias or racism is offensive and extraordinarily dangerous. The entire study of mathematics is based on clearly formulated definitions and statements of fact. If this were not so, bridges would collapse, planes would fall from the sky, and bank transactions would be impossible. The ability of mathematics to provide right answers to well-formulated problems is not something specific to one culture or another. It is really the essence of mathematics itself. To claim otherwise is to argue that somehow the math taught in places like Iran, China, India, or Nigeria is not genuinely theirs, but borrowed or forged from white supremacy culture. It is hard to imagine a more ignorant and offensive statement. Finally, and more importantly, the woke approach to mathematics is particularly poisonous to those it pretends to want to help. Let's start with a reasonable assumption that mathematical talent is equally distributed at birth to children from all socioeconomic backgrounds, independent of ethnicity, sex, and race. Those born in poor, uneducated families have clear educational disadvantages relative to others, but mathematics can act as a powerful equalizer. Through its set of well-defined, culturally unbiased, unambiguous set of rules, mathematics gives smart kids the potential to be, at least in this respect, on equal footing with all others. They can stand out by simply finding the right answers to questions with objective results. There is no such thing as white mathematics. There is no reason to assume, as the activists do, that minority kids are not capable of mathematics or of finding the right answers, and there can be no justification for, in the name of equity or anything else, depriving students of the rigorous education they need to succeed. The real anti-racists will stand up and oppose this nonsense. We are currently on Mars. We are on Mars because of the mathematical abilities of people around the planet. men and women from all races, sizes, colors, creeds, backgrounds, sexualities. And it pains me to read things about this because, look, mathematics surrounds us. If you're making movies, you need to understand lenses. You need to understand what's the difference between a 50 millimeter lens or an 85 millimeter lens. How does a zoom lens work? Going from, 10 millimeters to 150 millimeters. Mathematics is a part of music. Mathematics is a part of just about everything human beings do. And the idea that somehow we're going to pollute something like mathematics was just fundamental to our entire technological progress is a dangerous, dangerous thing. And we have done wondrous things. I am talking to you right now because of math. And math is, as he put it, well, it's its own thing. Math is self-evident to itself. It is open to everybody. It doesn't discriminate. And I thought it was important because for me, as a person that looks to the future, our very essence, our survival is based in mathematical concepts. We have to protect the sanctity of math because it is at the very basis of everything we have and everything we will have in the future. So there you go. That's what I wanted to talk about today. I know it's sort of different than the things I normally talk about, but some of it is. But I thought it would be pretty interesting to delve into all of these subjects. And now in one day, here's a little I guess insight into how my mind works because, man, my brain never ends. It just keeps going like the Energizer Bunny. So there you go. But you know what? Now let's jump into what you guys have to say. We shall see. And you have a lot to say today, as you do every day. This first one comes from William Everall, our man William Everall. William Everall says, "Hey, Rob, I hope you're doing great. I was listening to a subject you had on February 28th, 2021. Side note, the time machine needs to happen or anti-aging formula. Anyway, you were talking about this cancel culture stuff. I talked about this subject directly in the Post-Geek Singularity Facebook. I've talked about my uncle, who died this year. He could be one of the most abrasive guys I've ever known, but would give you the shirt off his back or invite you camping, etc. He was a drunk. He grew pot illegally. I think he just didn't like the system. Anyway, I used to go up and visit him. He would rant here and there, and I would just listen. Otherwise, we'd just talk movies and listen to his music, bullshitting, getting drunk. With the disco ball I bought, authentic from the 70s. I bought him animated life-size witches that cost $100 or more. He dressed them up in Green Bay Packers garb. He died from liver failure, and he knew about it. He actually talked about it a lot, and anyone who objected, he would disagree with them. He would tell them to frick out of here. I had a stroke, and I no longer went over to his house for a couple of years when I used to visit every other week. I was too embarrassed. People who have never met you accept disabilities more than the people who knew you before when you were very active. But I promised to read over his funeral, and I wrote a great speech and did that. I do wish he had better views. He didn't kill himself. I do wish he had better views, didn't kill himself, and wasn't a frickin' jerk. Sure, it wasn't my job to change him. I'm pretty sure I couldn't if I tried. And that goes the same with most of society. I could have said I disagreed with my belligerent uncle, but he had a fun and funny side too. So I could have said I disagree, so all those good times are dismissed, and I'll never see you again. This is exactly what cancel culture is doing. Just finding something about someone and not only dismissing them from your life, but getting them fired too. Is that fun or funny? Because I've been unemployed and it's not very fun. Thank you so much for listening, and I wanted to comment on that letter. William Everall. Well, William, once again, thank you for writing in. Look, I agree. I mean, people are multifaceted. I like a lot of people that a lot of other people don't like, but there's something about them that I enjoy. And I don't expect, if I like somebody, I don't necessarily expect anyone else is going to like them. I do. And in my mind, that's all that really matters to me, is if I like somebody. I hope other people do, but everybody's a different kind of a person. So everybody's different. That's what makes us so great. This one, I want to thank you for writing in, because I think your point was very well taken. DC writes in, "'Tis I, DC, from the lockdown UK wasteland. I have a topic I'd like to hear your thoughts on, Rob, but first I'd like to briefly clear two things up from my last letter. Firstly, though I'd like to say thank you to you and the members of the Post-Geek Singularity who expressed support and opened their virtual arms to welcome me into this community, I was overwhelmed by the messages in the chat, and although I tried to reply and get involved, I was overwhelmed by the response of this great community. I'm thankful for all the kind words that were spoken by you and the Post-Geek Singularity. To single anyone out of the PGS by name would be unfair to everyone else, but you all know who you are. Thank you all so much. The first thing I want to clear up is this. I know that many of your other UK viewers were left a little confused about my mentioning that I went to middle school. We don't have middle schools here in the UK, but my home country was used as a guinea pig for a 3-tier school system like you have in the USA. This trial ran from 1972 to 2011, by which time I was halfway through high school. The head of the education arm of the UK government used the age-old political excuse of, it costs too much money to roll out a 3-tier school system. We all know the money saved goes into paying for various politicians' Christmas bonuses. The second point I wanted to address is my name. Of course it's a pen name. I have the name for two reasons. One, my real name isn't awesome enough to ever be on the front cover of a book, which someday I hope to publish. And secondly, it is a long-standing nickname. Whilst in middle school, there were 3 other guys that shared my first name, and one of them was in several of my classes. The teachers of those classes asked if either of us had a nickname they could use instead to avoid confusion. Neither of us did, and I suggested using the initials of my first and middle name. My middle name begins with the letter R, however, and I didn't want the nickname of DR, as I'd be called Doctor by other kids trying to be funny. Even though I was a Doctor Who fan at the time, I still wasn't keen on the idea. So I swapped the R for a C, and the name stuck. I only answer to my real name when I'm called by family members. Now that that's cleared up, on to the topic of this letter. This morning, I was on a video chat with my friend Kane. He wanted to talk about a movie I'd recommended to him back in November of last year. He wanted to watch some fantasy movies and had only ever seen Peter Jackson's excellent Lord of the Rings and Hobbit trilogies and the somewhat dull trope-by-numbers Harry Potter movies, and didn't know where to go beyond that. He said that seeing as I'm a guy who knows movies better than anyone else he knows, that I was the person to ask for recommendations. And oh boy, did I recommend some movies. I compiled a list of fantasy movies I thought he'd enjoy. That list included classic fantasy films like The Wizard of Oz, Time Bandits, Ridley Scott's Legend, Ladyhawke, The Neverending Story, Krull, the animated 80s anthology film Heavy Metal, Ralph Bakshi's rotoscope masterpiece Fire and Ice, and the Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan movies and the Indiana Jones movies. Yes, even Crystal Skull. Despite its flaws, I like that movie. All the way, well, no one's perfect, DC. All the way through to more modern fantasy films such as Tim Burton's animated masterpieces, The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Corpse Bride, and Burton's Alice in Wonderland and Edward Scissorhands. The first Dragonheart movie featuring the voice of the late great Sean Connery, the adaptation of Aragon, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, the movie Mortal Engines, just to name more than a few. But to my mind, no list of fantasy films can be considered to be complete without a few films on it by Guillermo del Toro. So I included his excellent movie The Shape of Water and my personal favorite del Toro movie Pan's Labyrinth. It was Pan's Labyrinth that my friend Kane wanted to talk about. More complain about, really. His issue is not with the story, the scares, the pacing, the special effects, or the acting. His complaint was simply that it was a foreign language film. He said he didn't really watch the film because he had spent the entire runtime reading the English subtitles. He followed this up by saying this: I guess I'll have to wait for the English language remake to enjoy the film. Needless to say, I was flabbergasted by this, and I proceeded to launch into a defense of both Pan's Labyrinth and foreign language films. I think foreign language films are underappreciated things of beauty. For the most part, there's always a few bad movies out there, no matter what language they're in. But Guillermo del Toro's Spanish language movies are without a doubt some of the best foreign language movies ever made. The very idea that a classic like Pan's Labyrinth should be remade, of course, left a sour taste in my mouth, as I'm sure it would for anyone who appreciates what the imagination can do. It's a simple fact we all know that remakes of classics almost always never turn out well. There are exceptions, of course. John Carpenter remade The Thing immediately springs to mind, as does Netflix's remake of Lost in Space. But alas, most remakes are either poor imitations that lack the wonder and creativity of the original, or end up being a steaming pile of fecal matter. I know that an English-language remake of Pan's Labyrinth was rumored to be in the works for a while, almost a decade ago, if not longer, and the idea is rather silly to me. A remake of Pan's Labyrinth would not be the same or as good. Even if a translated version of the script for the original film was used and Guillermo del Toro was back in the director's chair, it wouldn't be the same. The remake would lose what is so charming about the original Spanish film, and it would, of course, be bloated with CGI as opposed to the original, which I personally believe used the perfect blend of CGI and practical effects. Not only that, but the original cast of the film gave great performances that I believe not many Hollywood actors could replicate on their best day. An English-language remake would diminish the original and ultimately be a poorer film. The Swedish horror movie Let the Right One In, based on the book of the same name, which, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it, is one of the best vampire novels in the last 30 years. It's a perfect example of great foreign language film that is somewhat diminished and tragically not as well known as its American remake, Let Me In, directed by Matt Reeves. While Let Me In is a good movie in its own way, it's still nowhere near as good as the Swedish original. I believe that instead of remaking Pan's Labyrinth and other foreign language classics like Let the Right One In, Del Toro's film Kronos, for example, for the English market, the movie should be dubbed over in English. That way, the audience doesn't lose the performance of the original actors, and not only this, but that's what happens for English-language movies for their non-English language-speaking audiences. Pretty much Hollywood movies that are internationally released are dubbed over in French, Spanish, Chinese, Danish, and so forth, and so on. And let's face it, most actors nowadays have to be halfway decent voiceover artists due to the rise in popularity of fully animated movies and shows and the ever-increasing use of CGI characters in live-action productions. But as an aside, I think that foreign language versions of films should always be available for the English market. Maybe have the foreign language cut of movies as a third disc in the DVD and Blu-ray release. To me, that seems like the best of both worlds. I'd love to know what you think about this, Rob, as I'm sure you'll have more to add to this topic, having worked in the movie business. Sorry for this being another long one. I'm going to push myself into becoming active in the chat soon. As I said in my last letter, I have found my people, and it's time to be one of them again. Thanks for taking the time to read my letter, Rob. May the force be with you, everybody. DC. DC, a great letter. A lot of people ask me about this. Maybe it's because I started going to the Seattle International Film Festival at a young age. I do not distinguish between films anymore. Aside from the fact that I always want to watch a movie in its original language, subtitle if I have to. I grew up going to foreign films, but I don't think of foreign movies as foreign. I think of them as movies they're French, they're Italian, they're Indian, they're Cambodian. In the case of African Kung Fu Nazis, I believe they're from Ghana, which I have on Blu-ray. I just don't make the distinction. I know, obviously, most people do, but to me, a movie's a movie, and I really always like to watch it. I like to hear a film in its original language. I like to hear people speaking in foreign languages. I speak a little bit of Spanish. I learned Hebrew when I was growing up, but I didn't stick with it. If you don't use Hebrew, it's hard to keep up. Dan Bat El Habayit, like, come on, Ima Ba'a El Habayit, who knows? I just love movies from all over the world, and I it's hard for me. I don't like dubbed movies at all. I can't deal with the fact that I can tell that they're dubbed, even though I'll watch Argento movies or Italian giallo movies, knowing that they shot mid-out sound. So a lot of the time, you're watching movies from the 50s, 60s, 70s, even the 80s. You know that they're synced later because they didn't use. It was easier to shoot without sound. It's a lot harder to shoot with sound because there's so many other problems. But I understand. I think most people, have a bias. They don't like that. They have to read. And a lot of people don't like to read. They're not fast readers. So they have problems watching a movie that's in a foreign language because they can't keep up. And I get that. And I think as an alternative, I agree with you, DC. Having movies that are dubbed in English are good for a lot of people. I think, I got to say, one of the things I think is Netflix's greatest strength that nobody talks about is the fact that you can watch most foreign films. You can watch Dark from Germany, the series Dark. You can watch the English dub. And I think people now on Netflix, I never thought this might be the case, but I think there's more people than ever before watching foreign cinema, cinema from other countries on Netflix because it's dubbed in English. And I think that's a great thing. You know, movies that people wouldn't normally necessarily watch, people are watching, whether it's Kingdom, the series from Korea, the period zombie series Dark, a lot of other movies. I mean, I find myself watching, there's so many different international offerings on Netflix. That might be my favorite thing about the platform, is how many foreign films and foreign series are available. It's actually quite astounding. But, you know, again, it's unfortunate that there are people. I would love it if your friend, if you know that, knowing that about him, you could say, look, watch this dubbed version of Pan's Labyrinth. I think you're really going to like it. And it's something he might have liked that the presentation didn't allow him to make that leap. And I think that's a bummer. That is a bummer. So, but I really did like that letter. This letter comes from Charlotte H. Hi, Rob. I think this is my first letter. Kevin Feige has recently talked about how if movies like Blade warrant an R rating, they will have those discussions, but it's unlikely. The aftermath has been crazy. It might just be me who's noticed this, but as someone who is born and lives in the UK, there seems to be a taboo surrounding R-rated content. In the UK, I've always felt we're more relaxed about it because after 9 o'clock, they don't censor swearing, so maybe I'm used to seeing more adult content. I do think the rating system does need updating because I think parents do feel more comfortable allowing their kids to see more graphic content. The MCU has done a great job with fight choreography, so I don't mind it not being R-rated. If you would like to share your thoughts about whether Blade really needs to be rated R, I would love to know your thoughts. Well, thanks for writing in, Charlotte. Nice to have you. I think it's a really good question. You're asking something that I think is really important. I personally, if you watch the opening of the original Blade with Wesley Snipes, one of the most fun things about that movie is the opening. When you're in the blood club, the blood comes out of the sprinklers, and then Wesley Snipes, there's that great action scene where he fights off all the vampires, and it's pretty violent. And I think by very definition of like, you can get away with it because I guess with the MPAA, when people know it, it's vampires, so they're not real people. But violence to me is violence, and we in the United States have a really bizarre relationship with both sex and violence in films and bad language. It's bizarre. It just adds to the infantilization of our entire culture. But if I was going to make a Blade movie, I would be making an R-rated Blade movie because the bloodletting and all of that, the piercing of flesh, the bodies being torn asunder or burning in the sun, it's all part of the vampire mythology, and it's what makes it, frankly, fun to watch. You know, I mean, if you're watching a PG-related or PG-rated vampire movie, it doesn't have the visceral gut punch. I mean, look, if you bite somebody on the neck, a vampire bites somebody on the neck with their big fangs, you want to see the teeth pierce the flesh, and you want to see that blood running. That's what makes it so visceral. So I think it'd be really hard to make a PG Blade movie. Also, you know, I think now that we're delving into the supernatural aspects of the Marvel Universe, we need to toughen up, man. We need to really get in there and you know, we got to delve into the brutality of what it means to be undead and how the undead treat the living. I mean, I think it's all important stuff, and I definitely want to see an R-rated Blade movie. But if they're going to get away with one that's PG-13, that doesn't mean it's bad. I mean, I love Jaws. It's one of my favorite movies. You get to see some really good violence and gore. Captain Quint gets bit in half, and it's quite bloody and disturbing. PG rating. PG rating. It really depends how it's presented. But I think thematically and structurally and just tonally, it'd be very hard to make a Blade movie and make it PG-13 and make it as appealing as the originals. I mean, look at Guillermo del Toro's Blade 2. You could never have made that as a PG movie. So we shall see. Ruben Hilbers is here. Ruben Hilbers says, "Hey, Rob, I feel like I'm playing roulette writing in for the second time this week. Oh, well, crosses fingers. I've talked about this in chat, but NCIS New Orleans is ending after this season and being replaced by NCIS Hawaii. In my humble opinion, this is a major budget cut because the new show can use the old studio of Hawaii Five-0 while recycling its assets from both New Orleans and Five-0. Plus, Magnum PI is still doing its thing, so they can share a lot of their stuff. Actors, sets, footage, etc. They're amortizing those costs. That, my friend, is what's called good producing. And, of course, they can shut down the New Orleans facilities. So what do you think about this? Is this indeed a budget cut? And if it is, what does it mean? Could this be a sign that Discovery's lack of performance is really starting to hurt CBS, especially since Netflix is not having to pay for the show anymore? Or am I just seeing things that aren't there? Regards, Ruben Hilbers. P.S. Your Twitter picture is really scary. You're a really nice guy, but the picture makes me think that at any moment you'll open your window and get off my lawn to some poor kids trying to get back their soccer ball before taking out his double-barreled shotgun and opening fire. So you might want to change it unless that's the impression. Unless that impression was your intention. You know, I was just having fun because my hair was so long. I took that picture and I thought it was hilarious, and I put it up, and I originally put it up, I think, on Instagram, and I said, I'm about to write my manifesto for that very reason. I'm a playful chap, as people should know about me, but maybe you're right. To be more professional, it's like, what does that say about me? You know, the Netflix show's coming out, Tango Shalom, I'm trying to sell it, and I'm trying to be all kind of funny. I don't know, maybe that's been the part, that's been why I haven't had more commercial success in my life, because have I not taken myself seriously enough? But I think all of that, I think NCIS New Orleans went 7 seasons. And a lot of the time what happens is if you want to go longer than 7 seasons, based on the ratings, you have to renegotiate your contracts with talent. That's why Star Trek would go 7 seasons. They would renegotiate for a final season, so you get 7 seasons instead of 6. Or maybe somebody was picked up, they renegotiated throughout the series. But when you get past 7 seasons, there's significant bumps in things like salary and writing and producing fees. So it becomes economically sometimes not feasible to continue on. I mean, I'm sure Scott Bakula, by getting to 7 seasons, he probably had a very, very rich, very tasty payday if he went into seasons 8, 9, and 10, because it isn't show friends, it's show business, and his business people are shrewd because he's been in the business a long time. So I think you're right. I think it was economic reasons that caused NCIS New Orleans to probably shut down. And I think you're also very astute in saying because NCIS is still hugely popular, and by starting over, you can even cut costs from what they were spending on NCIS New Orleans already. Start over, start new with a new cast of exciting young people. And like you pointed out, Hawaii Five-0, you've got all this stuff that you can amortize the costs with. You've got set pieces and everything. The production's already set up there, so it makes sense. What you said seems reasonable to me. I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case at all, because that makes sense producing. You get more bang for your buck in Hawaii. And again, you've already got the infrastructure, the sets. You've got tons of... The art department there has already got probably everything you could possibly need. So I think you're absolutely right about that. Very astute observations. So again, thank you for writing in. This one comes from Jared Snyder. Jared Snyder writes, Hi, Rob. Here are my thoughts on why the Star Trek The Next Generation episode Darmok is entertaining TV, but not so good Star Trek. The Season 5 TNG episode Darmok, based on an idea by Joe Menosky, is often cited as a great Star Trek episode, but I don't agree. The episode asks, how do sentient creatures who are unable to understand one another learn to communicate? This theme is also explored in Denis Villeneuve's Arrival, which juxtaposes non-humanoid life forms speaking an alien language with English-speaking humans. Even though Star Trek movies, thanks to Mark Okrand, feature Vulcan and Klingon dialogues, the restraints of episodic American television was not going to allow a humanoid alien on TNG to speak more than a subtitled line or two. Working in these parameters, the writers constructed their story. There are examples of incomprehensible English in films such as the Jamaican patois of The Harder They Come, which is subtitled, or the caravan talk in Snatch, which should be. The metaphor-based language chosen by the TNG writers was a smart compromise and is why Darmok is entertaining TV. However, it is not good Star Trek. Does the Federation have a playbook for what to do when the Universal Translator fails? Isn't the communications officer trained in languages and linguistics? Instead, the trope of the isolated captain alone with an alien while his crew sidelined is as dusted off from Arena and reused. We see Picard motivated to learn Temerian, but Dathon shows no interest in English. Why? An external threat is used to force cooperation and accelerate the learning process, but these are senior experienced leaders, and if anyone can find ways to foster cooperation, they should be able to. None of this makes for good Star Trek. Worse, although a good plot device, the metaphor language strains credulity. Temerians must speak something more practical when needed. For example, when their own mother tongues were often incomprehensible to their neighbors, the trade language Chinook was spoken by native peoples between modern-day Alaska and Oregon and far inland. Today, with serialized international shows, you could have all kinds of languages with subtitles and realistic portrayals of the hard work that goes into translation. While Bad Reboot and Sycophant Hideout have demonstrated a willingness to use subtitled foreign and alien languages on their show, they lack basic writing skills in English, so it doesn't really matter. Question, Rob, did you ever interview Okrand? Mark Okrand created the Klingon language. He also wrote the Klingon dictionary. Live long and prosper, Jared M. Snyder, project manager by day and music historian by night. Well, Jared, great letter. Jared is a longtime foundational member of the Post-Geek Singularity. I have never met Mark Okrand, but I have his books, or his book. Is the Klingon Hamlet? Did he write that? I don't remember. But I think you're absolutely right. I don't agree with you though about the metaphoric language. I love the idea about a language that's only metaphor. I mean, I'm sure it seems a little odd, but that kind of gets around. It might have been something the Universal Translators had never encountered before. So I think that could be pretty interesting. I mean, I like the idea of it, but I've never liked Darmok as much as some people, to be honest. So I'm kind of right there with you. So I'm not going to hold it against you. I don't think that you are wrong about that. So, but yeah, I mean, for everything you cited, I think you're absolutely correct. Now let me get in here and see where we are at. You've been firing in a lot of, there's a lot of questions here. A lot of questions. Let's see. Let's go and see what you guys are doing. Alexander Evans sends in a tip and says, I just wanted your opinion on why Lucasfilm won't give us a Luke Skywalker series. It seems like a no-brainer, as everyone I know would be glued to the screen. They haven't yet. I think possibly because, Luke is so attached to the films, but I would love to see a Luke Skywalker series, to be honest. And I wouldn't be surprised if they make one, to be honest with you. I mean, after the response that he got, especially showing what happened make it fill in the blanks between Mandalorian and Force Awakens. I think it could be great. So I wouldn't count it out. Mike Lee says, boy, the hits keep coming for Dr. Seuss. Now 6 of his book titles are being discontinued because they've been deemed offensive. I know. You know what? Eventually, all of human history is going to be deemed offensive, and people aren't going to have it anymore. They're just going to only concentrate on the future. We must not look to the past. It's very frustrating. Chloe is here. Chloe says, what are some of your favorite movies that has or have become a cult status movie? Some of my picks would be Heathers, Fight Club, Dread 2012, and John Carpenter's The Thing. Well, I grew up with movies now that have become sort of cult titles. There's a lot of movies that I think, we were talking about vampire movies earlier. I think movies like Near Dark definitely have become culty. But in terms of modern cult films, let's say the last 40 years, there's so many. To Live and Die in L.A., Repo Man, With Nail and Eye, even like here in America, Battle Royale, the John Woo movies, The Killer and Hard Boiled. There's so many. There's so many that have become cult titles. But yeah, your picks, Heathers, Fight Club, Dread, John Carpenter's The Thing, absolutely, those are all part of it. John Carpenter's The Thing is generally considered to be, a genre classic. I don't know if I'd call it a cult film. I think that I think if you were going to go for an alien cult movie like that, I would say a movie called Xtro, XTRO, is more of a cult movie than The Thing, because The Thing has become kind of a mainstay of it depends how you define cult movie. I look, my beloved To Live and Die in L.A. is kind of a cult film. William Friedkin's own Rampage is kind of a cult film. So I think cult movies are sort of movies that have that are tremendous movies that have great appeal. The Hidden, I think Jack Shoulder's The Hidden is kind of a culty movie. Only Lovers Left Alive, I think, I was just talking about that on another stream, is I think a great cult film. But yeah, there's so many, and it's interesting because cult movies, depending on when you grew up, like I saw Heathers, and I took my mom to see Heathers in the theater, so Heathers to me wasn't a cult movie when I saw it. It was just a new release. It's become a cult movie because of its perception in the zeitgeist. So it really depends, but it's a good question. Chloe says, the best high school movies out of these movies here: The Breakfast Club, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Grease, or 3 O'Clock High, or an alternative one. One forgotten high school movie that I've always liked was Dream a Little Dream with the two Coreys. When I think of Dream a Little Dream, I think of a movie like Just One of the Guys. I love Just One of the Guys. I like, as far as John Hughes movies go, I really like Some Kind of Wonderful. I really like Some Kind of Wonderful. I, of course, love the Robert Downey Jr. Ultron. I love the Ultron Iron Man pairing, Tough Turf, directed by Fritz Kirsch. James Spader, Kim Richards. Now she's one of the wives of Beverly Hills, but Robert Downey Jr. and James Spader in a movie together. There's other, I don't know if they're really high school movies, but Ladies and Gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains, if you've ever seen that, I really like that movie. But one of my very favorite high school movies that I would definitely say is a cult movie is The Chocolate War, directed by Keith Gordon, with a great 80s soundtrack. Tremendous performance by John Glover. If you haven't seen that, it's a great movie. But of the movies that you put on the list, I love Breakfast Club. I love Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Of course, I love Grease. I used to know every move in Born to Handjive when that movie first came out. But of that list you gave me, Phil Joanno's 3 O'Clock High, which I have on Blu-ray. Buddy Revell, starring the great Richard Tyson as Buddy Revell and Casey Shamasco. I love 3 O'Clock High. And Buddy Revell, he of the masterpiece, Zalman King's masterpiece, Two Moon Junction, with Sherilyn Fenn and Richard Tyson. Wow, talk about a steamy movie. Woohoo! Thank you, 88 Films. Was it 88 Films? I think it was 88 Films that put out Two Moon Junction on Blu-ray in the UK. Thank you for that. Willow sends in a tip and says, if Disney does ever release something like Song of the South, how do you think they should go about doing it? Should they just release it with no comment and assume people understand? Should they include a disclaimer or commentary? When I was working for Curdy Pellerin, there was always talk about how if we could get Song of the South put out, how would we do it? And there's a lot of black audiences that really like Song of the South. And it was our thought that if we got people black, whether it was famous black figures in entertainment, in politics, in sports, if any of them wanted to speak out about Song of the South, they would introduce it. And we do like a documentary, talking to everybody, whoever wanted to talk to us, and I think put it in historical context. And that's how we were thinking about getting it done. Obviously, it's very problematic, so it didn't happen. Hey, Rob, any progress on getting John Campea and Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers on a stream to sing Kumbaya? Thoughts? I really think folks should talk to each other. I do too. And you know what? What's interesting is Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers has often spoken to me and talked about how much John Campea influenced him. I don't know why. Lately, I've been getting a lot of people have been saying to me that they either don't appreciate John or whatever. And I'm like, I think John's one of the best there is at what he does. And, you know, we're talking off the cuff, and I think John, he works his ass off to bring up-to-date entertainment news, and I really like working with John. And to me, I look up to him, and I look up to what he's done with his channel, and he's been a great collaborator. And as I've said, he's been very good to me as an employer, and I've quite enjoyed collaborating with him. And, you know, I think John is people don't know, he is actually a very thoughtful, nice person, but he's also very business-minded, and it's he's no nonsense, and I really appreciate that about him. But I haven't talked to Jeremy. I don't know if John would talk to Jeremy. Jeremy, I think, would talk to John. I don't know if John would talk to Jeremy. Sean's World says, cheers, buddy, from Canada. Keep it up. Well, Sean's World, thank you. Tomorrow, like I was saying to everyone, tomorrow on the Toronto Film Channel, I think it's torontofilmchannel.com, Tango Shalom will be airing from noon to 9 p.m. So I guess it's going to air 4 times. If you want to see if you're interested in seeing an indie spiritual family dance comedy fable that can be sitcom-y one time and heartfelt another time, if that's up your alley. You know, I was obviously produced it. I edited the film. I was the post supervisor and the VFX supervisor. You can watch that tomorrow around the world on the Toronto Film Channel. I think it's torontofilmchannel.com, beginning at 12 o'clock Pacific time all the way through 9 p.m. Pacific time. So you can jump in on the middle or watch it over and over. Thank you, Toronto. Jeff Yerke is here. Jeff Yerke and Mrs. Yerke. I think, you know, I've got Claude and Candida. They're the first couple of the Burnettwork, but I would have to say that maybe Jeff Yerke and his wife are the prince and princess. Not really, they're not real royalty, but in my mind, they represent. They're kind of my prince and princess. I think they, judging from how much Jeff seems to love his wife, or maybe Jeff, you know, he's gone around the bend crazy and his wife passed away years ago and he only thinks she's there. But I don't think so. Jeff Yerke says, hi, Rob. Precious little to report from the Northern California Post-Geek Singularity. I'm redoubling my efforts to stay happy, healthy, and grow a little bit wiser each day. Mrs. Y and I remain glued to the Western genre and are enjoying it very much. Live long and prosper, the Yerk Man. Come on, Yerk Man, give us a list. What are you and Mrs. Y watching? Fill me in. Torrin Atkinson sends in a super chat and says, Google a 2017 article and to think they saw racism on Mulberry Street to see the offending image. Let's ask Willow how she feels about it. Let's do that right now. Let's see. And to think they saw racism on Mulberry Street. Let's see. I'll see, Torn. Images. And to think they saw racism on Mulberry Street. This is from today. You know what? It's been so. I'll have to go find that later because there's so many. It has been. There's a million different articles about this all over the place, so I'll have to find it. I'll have to Google it again. I'd love to ask Willa how she feels about it. Black Philip Alvarez sends in a tip and says, so Rob, today, by the way, if you haven't seen Torrin Atkinson's movies, Ruin Nation, his movie on the film festival, you got to watch it. Black Philip Alvarez says, so Rob, today my great state of Texas has lifted the mask mandate and opened up businesses to 100%. Too soon, I think. Would love to hear your take. Well, you know what's great? Whatever I have to say, we'll know in a couple of weeks how that's going to work out. I don't understand. I don't understand why. I have to tell you, I'm not going to be going out into public anytime soon without a mask. Even if they lift the mask mandate. I'm not going to do it. I mean, everyone's getting inoculated. I do think it's too soon, Black Philip Alvarez. I agree with you. I think it's problematic. We're not there yet. But okay, I just don't understand how hard is it to wear a mask in public. We got outbreaks all over the world now. You know, it's not going away anytime soon, even though people are getting inoculated. Not enough people have. I just don't get it. Jason S. says, Rob, you should read the 6 Dr. Seuss books that have been banned on your 666th show. That would be very metal. You'll probably have to put up a parental advisory warning label, though. The children shall leave. That's actually a funny idea. I like that idea a lot, Jason. No, we're going to celebrate on my 666th show. We are going to celebrate Satan as a character in pop culture. And not celebrate Satan, but you know, there's been so many, whether it's the devil's advocate, maybe we'll talk about everybody who's played Satan. I want to see if I can get an actor who's played Satan and see what is it like to play Satan. But we have to do something for the 666th show. And by the way, that's like a month away. That's just a little over a month away. So we'll be having the 666th show sometime in early April. As a matter of fact, I'll throw it out to you. What do you think we should do on the 666th show? Maybe I'll do a retrospective or talk about my favorite movies with the devil or favorite heavy metal records or all of that. But that's I think that's pretty funny. I like that. Mr. Tickle Trunk sends in a tip and says, your hair is looking pretty cool when it gets longer like this. As Billy Connolly would say in a Scottish accent, you're looking very windswept and interesting. Am I? I mean, it's pretty, you know, it's pretty good. You know, I guess I am. What it needs is shape. I mean, I haven't really cut it, but you know, having the long hair, it's kind of funny. I kind of like the weird. It's not just gray; it's all these different shades of gray. It's like that Visage song, Shades of Grey. There, I've dated myself there. Hashtag it was Han all along sends in a tip. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. It could be. It could have been Han the whole time. He could have been pulling the strings. Who knows? Anonymous sends in a tip and says, this is Chaos Magic Wanda, and that makes you a Trump supporter. Yeah, it's so weird. So bizarre. I certainly am not. Benson sends in a super chat and says, John, I love the new Eagle. Everyone calls me John. It's so funny. But I understand what you mean. Oh, he's winking. I think it's funny. Everyone's, you know. Do you think that Bryan Singer will ever get the chance to make a big budget movie again in this cancel culture? Thanks, Mark. I hope so. You know, I do think Bryan makes good movies. I think, and like any filmmaker, you know, he's had his ups and downs. But Bryan has been, I mean, look, is Bryan a perfect person? Is anyone? But there's things he's been accused of that I know are not true at all. And, you know, I can't really speak about it because it's ongoing litigation and all that. But I will say this. Bryan Singer has never hidden who he is. He hasn't. And some of the things he's been accused of, I know for a fact are patently untrue for various reasons that I won't get into. But it's, you know, he because he's lived his life very much out in the open. He's also been kind of an easy target. I hope he does because I think he'll make some great movies. I'd like to see more movies like Valkyrie, like The Usual Suspects, like X-Men Days of Future Past or X2 or the original X-Men or even Apt Pupil. I'd like to see more. I hope he gets to make more. David Crabtree is here. Greetings, Sir Rob. Very excited to let the PGS know that the first full trailer for Cybermechs will drop soon. Ooh, you made a trailer for your comic book? I love it. You'll be introduced to the Alpha Mech Force led by Rylos Omega and his fellow Alphas. Citrone Forge, Tronic Steel, and Chrometia Dax. Is it Chrometia Dax? Those are great names. I like that. Citrone Forge and Tronic Steel. Yeah. That's metal. I love that. Graham Halpin sends in a super chat. Thanks, man. Thanks, Graham. Appreciate it. Oh, David Crabtree goes on to say, let me start again. Rylos Omega and his fellow Alphas. Citrone Forge, Tronic Steel, Chrometia Dax, Starblazer, Blitzforce, Crossfire, Silvershot, and Doc Argos as they defend Cybermech Society from Lord Zordox and his terrorist Arklons. Magnus Strike, Dread Force, Chain Gang, Nitron, Star Striker, Dr. Synox, and more. Really excited to share this. Well, it sounds good to me, David. Bring it on. Let's play that trailer. Send me the trailer. I'll play it on the show. Yeah. Bunyan Snipe is here. Bunyan Snipe says, Wanda was born in 1989. What if we got a flashback? I read this the other day. What if we got a flashback to 1988 and a group of mutants who come through a portal made by a Hydra Tesseract experiment? Magneto's wife is pregnant with the twins and wish to escape the prejudice of their world in which the Allies lost World War II. His wife dies in childbirth. The twins are adopted by two Hydra agents in Sokovia, and Magneto is imprisoned by Hydra, vowing revenge. You know, I that could be, but I really think that's a pretty elaborate scenario, by the way. Like I said before, I really think that the mutants need to be introduced organically as part of this universe. I think they're already here. We just haven't heard the story of the mutants yet. And I think that Pietro and Wanda are the first mutants that we've met as part of the MCU. But I think there's plenty of mutants already here. And I really think it's important that when they introduce mutants in the MCU, well, they already have, but that it's organic. It's not multiversal. It's not time traveling or time ripping stuff. So, yeah. Mr. Zadok, or Zadok, is it Zadok? Longtime father, just joined. You took my favorite word in verisimilitude, with the second being ombudsman. Ombudsman. That's a great word. And I wonder if I might be the Viscount of verisimilitude. You can be the Viscount of verisimilitude. I became the Viceroy, so you can absolutely be the Viscount of verisimilitude. Who am I to say no? Stub McShave says, just a small comment on DC's letter. Although Denmark is a long-time historical enemy of ours, just kidding, they don't dub movies either. In fact, none of the Scandinavian countries dub foreign movies, except for movies directed at young children, of course. I can see that. I mean, you know, they want to encourage education. I understand that. Justin Jorgensen says, I finished season 1 of The Next Generation today, and boy, a certain character's death hit me incredibly hard. I didn't love this character as a lot of the others, but her quote about death opened my eyes and choked me up. Hailing frequencies closed, sir, and the music, my gosh. Well, see, Justin, you've proven my point that the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation, while stilted and they're trying to find their way, is not a total wash. And I agree with you. And there's still great episodes of season 1. I love The Big Goodbye. I love Heart of Glory. I love Conspiracy. I love 11001001. I even kind of like The Neutral Zone. So it's not a total wash. I mean, yeah, okay. You have to wade through Angel 1 and Home Soil, which is two of the Home Soil's terrible. And Justice and The Naked Now, not good. Not good. Can't defend those, but it's not a total wash. Justin Toner says, Rob, thanks for shining a light on the Dr. Seuss stuff. Oh, and since you mentioned African Kung Fu Nazis, when will you be mailing me my copy? Just send me your mailing address. I will send it right out to you. I also have to figure out, I don't even know, on Let's Get Physical Media, we did give away, Tenet, a 4K steelbook of Tenet, and a 4K steelbook of the MCU Incredible Hulk. And these are unopened, brand, but they're in my special little steelbook cases that I get to protect my steelbooks, of which I got a new one yesterday. I got Saint Maud. So I need to know does anybody know who won these? I got to go back and find out. So we shall see. But I will send you your copy of African Kung Fu Nazis. It is here. It's right over there. I have it, and you should have it. Everybody should have it. Sheriff Carl. Hello, Sheriff Carl. Singles, Last Action Hero, The Crow, and Judgment Night are all great rockin' soundtracks. Ooh, those are good soundtracks. What do you think is the best soundtrack? We don't get great soundtracks with original songs anymore. Guess it doesn't bother me. Today's mainstream music doesn't rock. It doesn't rock, but I have to tell you, The Crow and Singles are great soundtracks. And Judgment Nights are great. I own all three of them. I don't have the soundtrack to Last Action Hero, but I love both. The Crow has two soundtrack albums. It's got the music, the Source Q soundtrack album with like the Cure's Burn on it, and then there's the actual score, which I love. Graham Revell's score for The Crow. The single soundtrack is great because it's all like Seattle grunge rock music. They just released an expanded version of that soundtrack recently that I didn't get. And Judgment Night has all kinds of different great songs on it. Yeah, we don't get great songs anymore because there's not that many rock bands anymore. You know, I miss that. I mean, Singles, and think about it. Singles came out, 90? Singles is 30 years old and The Crow is 94, so that's 27 years ago. I mean, it's a bummer. It is a bummer. It's a bummer. I don't know. Mr. Zadok, oh, that's very sweet of you, sir, to support the channel in that way. Thank you so much. That's very nice of you. Pardon the previous typos. Couldn't be helped. Watched you for half a year and then every back episode as I feel like you are chicken soup for my soul. I've written 2 letters to you but can't choose which to send, the complimentary or the challenge. Send them both. Why not both? Or you know what? Better yet, put them on the same thing and make me read them at the same time. Start with the complimentary one, then issue the challenge. Could be fun. Richard said, but I want to thank you for supporting the channel. That's very nice of you. Richard says, I was worried that the Paramount Plus presentation wasn't going to hit the spot, but it did. I'm so happy the feeling of wanting to die inside is becoming a regular experience. Remember when you wanted to get the movies early to see the trailers? Yeah. I know. It's... What are we going to do? We have to move forward. It's the inexorable march of time. Richard says, how many times have they tried to cancel Ben Shapiro, but they never succeed because his media infrastructure is sufficiently separate from the media cartel? Cancel culture goes hand in hand with media monopolies. The tools are big enough to hurt us now. I agree with that. But I think that the real thing is why do people want to cancel other people? Look, I understand if you're like a criminal or like if you're like Ceausescu or something, from Romania, like the article I read. But I this idea that people really, I think people enjoy going after other people. I think there's an insidious glee that people take that makes them feel self-righteous and that they've done something good for the world. It's scary. I don't understand why people would want to do that. I mean, if someone's legitimately done something wrong, committed a crime or against someone, another person, or a horrible crime like you're Bernie Madoff, I get it. But to have ideas, I mean, to me, if somebody says something really obnoxious, I would rather have them come on the show and like, let's have a conversation. And sometimes I feel I can't even do that. I have to watch my P's and Q's. I don't like that. There's not as much. I would rather be talking about Star Trek or Marvel movies or books or whatever. I mean, I try and do as much of that as I can. But I feel like these days are. Who knows now? I just don't understand the reason behind wanting to cancel people for different points of view. I don't get it. And comedy, I like black comedy. Now, when I say black comedy, yes, I went and directed a documentary with 4 black comedians in Belize, but I don't mean when I say black comedy, black comedians. I mean black comedy, dark comedy, like Dr. Strangelove or Kind Hearts and Coronets. I love irreverent comedy. And I think, why are we killing that off? I don't know. But Richard, like you said, the bigger media conglomerates are, I do think it's going to come around, though. I think ultimately nobody wants to live in this kind of a society. We want to tell off-color jokes. We want to because you know what? When you tell a joke that has if you've got a sardonic sense of humor, there's truth in all those things that we can recognize. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. And I think we need to never let that go. Alexander Wilson says, math teachers ask students to show the work so that teachers know what students are thinking, but that can center the teacher's need to understand rather than student learning. Teachers should seek to understand individual student perspectives and focus on students showing their work in ways that help students learn how to process information. That's what is said in actually the Math Equitable Toolkit. It offers a variety of ways for students to demonstrate their question answering processes. I know, but here's the thing. When it comes to math, I also think that in some places, the reason that you show your work when you're doing a math problem, and I had a lot of problem in math, is to show that you understand how the math problem works, that you know how to get from point A to point B. And I think sometimes, in terms of math, I get it. That's what led to Common Core and all of those kinds of things. But I think math is pretty damn straightforward. And, not everything, when you're learning how to deal with facts and figures, I think it's when you say that teachers should seek to understand individual student perspectives and focus on students showing their work in ways that help students learn how to process information. I think that's why they do show their work. That's how you learn to process math information. But I think at the end of the day, you know what? Math can't be about individual students processing information. Math has to be how do students, like, what if you're working together in a scientific capacity? If you don't have a common ground, and I think mathematics gives you that common ground, the way individuals process information becomes more about the individual and less on the math. And I think that, yes, the teachers can always benefit from understanding how students process information, but, isn't it more important to know about the math first? I would think so. Claudius says, I scanned the Gates Foundation's Pathway website for equitable math instruction and the guide for dismantling racism in math instruction. This seems to be tailor-made for another hot topic in our culture war, but the guide doesn't seem that inflammatory. I don't think it's inflammatory, but I'm thinking about the fact what really worries me about these kinds of things is, once again, it's divisive for our culture to say that every single thing in it, it has to be, we have to think about these things first. I think what our mathematician, the article I read, what's so great about math is that math is the great equalizer. It is the great equalizer. Math in itself, the joy of mathematics is equal. It's really interesting. There's a great piece of Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about this, about math and about science and what happens to a society when we forget about the importance of these things. And I feel we're going down that road. That that the important thing is not how math itself is taught or how people. It's you got to keep the focus on the math, and the equitable teaching and all that. That can't be at the forefront of mathematical or mathematic education. You have to concentrate on the math first. Not everything is about figuring out how to teach things equitably, because math itself, that is more of an equalizer than learning how to tailor your learning to every kid, because that's not how the world works. But mathematics does show you how the world works. That's just. But like you said, Claude, I don't think the guide's inflammatory, but again, why is that even a part of mathematical education? We're the only people that seem to be doing these kinds of things, and we're going to get smoked in terms of being on the world stage if we don't start really concentrating on the fact that, to me, our math scores are falling. We need to get kids more interested in STEM subjects. We got to make sure that people put down their phones and stop looking at Instagram and learning about the joys of science and how cool it is that we're on Mars, because we're going to fall way behind if we don't step up our game. But I also think that, like Alexander's saying, students showing their work in ways to help students learn how to process information. I think that's important. But the thing is, there are systems like math systems. We need to have them be standardized so we can do science. And if everybody's processing information differently, how's that going to work on the back end when you have like 10 people working together that all have to understand the same math in order to land a probe on Mars? I think it could be tough. Tom Jr. Jackson says, "Hey, Gilbert, love the podcast. I'm a fan of the Aristocrats." Oh, sorry, wrong podcast. Rob, loving the show with lots of intense, powerful letters. 3 O'Clock High needs to be a whining about movies film. Bring on the dark 666 show with hashtag free the toys. I know, right? It'd be fun. That would bum me out. I get so scared. Richard says, "I'm a Jew, but I'm not sure I'd want to live in a world where Mein Kampf and the Elders of Zion were banned on my behalf." No, I mean, here's the thing. I'm with you. You can't get rid of Mein Kampf or the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, because you have to look at those books and be able to study and explain, this is why this was wrong. I mean, frankly, if as an example of my dark humor, I would say that like, what a dumb thing. Like, why would you want to get rid of, if all of the things that you talk about, all the protocols of the Elders of Zion, if the Jews were really controlling the world, why would you want to get rid of them? Wouldn't you want to make us your ally? And by the way, I'm still waiting. I mean, I know I was adopted into a Jewish family. I was bar mitzvahed, and we did build the Schoenfeld Gardner Foundation did build on my mom's side of the family. We did build a synagogue in Seattle, but I've yet to be indoctrinated into the Zionist occupied government, the one world order. I'm waiting. So if anyone out there, I'm willing to throw in the towel and help out. But that the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, I read that book and I'm like, what? How come I'm not a part of this? But no, you're right. See, people are like, how can you say these things, Rob? I'm trying to be darkly sardonic. This is my humor. But you're right. I think your point, Richard, is right. You can't, getting rid of things is not helpful, especially when they're bad ideas and they're ideas that led to such horrible suffering. They need to be brought to the fore and examined and discussed so we know why they're bad ideas and so they don't happen again. I mean, I think it's always better if we can examine these ideas. It's such a weird thing to me that everybody wants to be comfortable all the time. I've never been made uncomfortable by an idea, by examining it or thinking about it or tossing it around in my head, mulling it over. It's weird. Claudius goes on to say, the math guide's writers clumsily focus on white supremacy instead of effectiveness. If we're honest about our public school instruction, we might agree that it tends to be ineffective at engaging or inspiring the majority of students despite background. Amen, sir. That is exactly correct. Learning should be joyous and learning for its own sake. The more you learn, the better off you are, the more engaged with the world you are. And I think you're absolutely right. Public school instruction, it tends to be ineffective at engaging or inspiring the majority of students despite background. I mean, that's what I can you imagine if school was inspiring, and you actually were engaged and all kids with disparate backgrounds and all the differences could get together. And that's why I liked doing things when I was in high school, like putting the newspaper together. It was fun to hang out with everybody and make something, the next day or whenever this paper would get printed and we can give it out, and everybody that worked on the newspaper, there was a lot of we had a wacky bunch of folks working on newspaper, but we had the newspaper that we made that bonded us together. And that was great fun. And I think that's important. Claudius says, Robert and Justin Toner, we need to review West African films for the insidious and dangerous influence of Ghanaianism. We cannot allow Hitler and Tojo to spread their racist ideology through the underground fight clubs in West Africa. Man, it's not within arm's reach, but boy, I think that I just hope that our love of African kung fu Nazis is not ever misconstrued, because I love it. I love having it. I love that it exists. Some people are going to be like, what do you mean some people? Some people are going to get upset and go, what is this movie that you're talking about, African Kung Fu Nazis? What is this? Well, you just have to watch the trailer, and I think you'll understand. But we cannot allow Hitler and Tojo to spread their racist ideology through underground fight clubs in West Africa. Amen, sir. Amen. Richard says, great show, my dude. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Keaton Toothman says, any update on the film festival on Mount Hopeless? Love you, bro. There is. You know what? I'm going to get the last of the films up, and you'll be seeing that. So it will be out. And I am calling people and arranging times to shoot people's interviews. So, yes. Sheriff Carl says, by the way, if you haven't seen Keaton Toothman's movie, there is a movie up. It's feature length. And yes, that's right. And it's on the channel now. Sheriff Carl says, not to toot my own horn, but my band fucking rocks. I'll send you a record when we finish it. Authentic Seattle shit. Get that deluxe single CD. Last Action Hero has Megadeth, AC/DC, Alice in Chains, Buckethead, Queensryche, Cypress Hill, and others. It rules. Oh, well, then I'll have to get that. It sounds like a no-brainer. I got to get that. Why don't I have that already? I don't know. Crazy. Anonymous says, so what's next? Are they going to remove where the white women at line from Blazing Saddles? Oh, I'm sure that somebody is going to, they just, you know what? Blazing Saddles is too old now for the cancel culture to find it. I'm surprised that no one has gone after Blazing Saddles. I really am. Where the white women at? It's so funny. The movie's so good, but man, talk about politically incorrect. You know, the thing is, there's a lot of old movies that aren't that old that are like very problematic, but problematic in the sense that look what was being made then. I mean, look where we were. Why did those movies get made? Why were they popular? You know, it's funny. I got taken to task once for using the term blaxploitation. And I love blaxploitation movies. And someone said, what do you mean? That's racist. And I'm like, okay, well, it's a recognizable genre name. Perhaps it is. Is there another word for those movies? I don't know. You remember that documentary? I think it was an HBO documentary called Pimps Up, Hose Down. I think that's what it was called. Can you even play that documentary anymore? I don't know. We live in a crazy world. So, yeah. Anonymous goes on to say, are they going to, as they say, those who try and erase history are doomed to repeat it? I know. That's why I don't understand. Why erase history? By the way, history is so interesting. People were so interesting. You know, it was funny. Ken Burns did a documentary on Prohibition. Man, I did not know. They never taught this in school. I did not know how, like, in the 1800s in the Old West, just how there were so many degenerate drunks, and how Prohibition came about way before the 1920s, and probably rightfully so. I had no idea about it. My God, were we a nation of filthy drunkards. We were. But by the way, I highly recommend that. And that's something I didn't even, like, for all of I love history. I love reading about and learning about history. I did not know we were such a nation of lushes. I didn't know that. But what a great documentary. So if you haven't seen Prohibition, Ken Burns' documentary, I think it's 4 parts. I highly recommend watching it, especially if you like to drink, as I do. So it was great. Mr. Tickle Trunk sends in a tip and says, the number of people dismissing the overturn of STEM fields with activism scares the living shit out of me. Me too. My grandmother smuggled my mother out of Hungary in the 40s to avoid this stuff. Now I see equity dismantling things here, even math. Oh, I think it's terrifying. I think it's terrifying. And again, I think it's even more terrifying because the natural progression of things was that equity, we were moving towards those goals anyway. Things were changing. And, more than ever with the kind of communications technology that's happening, the kind of, especially young people look no further than, I'm hoping, at least maybe I'm naive to think so, but I see that kids today, young kids in high school and things like that, they are much more aware and understanding of people of different backgrounds or ethnicities or sexuality. There's more acceptance there than ever before. I'm not saying is it perfect? No. But that was a natural progression of our culture. And I feel that it's being derailed by this screaming, yelling. I don't know. That's weird. But yeah, Elizabeth's father left. She left Serbia. Her father escaped to escape that kind of totalitarian rule. Claudia says, funny, Neil deGrasse Tyson talked about the public's reaction to Pluto being downgraded from planet status. People were more focused on the idea that they had lost something than the actual science of what defines a planet and a comet. I know. And I think it's because, Pluto is a Disney character. So it all goes back to that. But yeah, isn't that weird? It's so weird. Templar U says, how you been doing, man? I hope you're doing well. I don't know. We'll see after this stream. But thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you looking out for me, by the way, Templar U. Thank you very much. Yeah, but I just can't abide. I can't abide the... It's so odd. That Neil deGrasse Tyson thing, he actually talks about Islam in it. And he talks about how Islam, a majority of the stars in the sky were named by Arab astronomers. And even words like algebra, all that stuff, they're Arabic words. And science and math had taken root, and then it was the clerics where Islam, basically what Islam did was they eliminated science from their culture. And that's what he was speaking about, and it's really interesting. And again, because fundamentalist thought, you took one of the most vibrant cultures that created so much of our foundational knowledge, and then when more of a fundamentalist regime came into power, all of those things were pushed out. And then he uses as an example Nobel Prize winners because in current Islamic culture, it doesn't necessarily emphasize the sciences, and Neil deGrasse Tyson takes it back and shows why that occurred. And we don't want that to happen. That's why you were talking about Mr. Tickle Trunk about STEM fields. We don't ever want to think that science or lines of inquiry are somehow harmful to people. Look, if somebody, strings somebody up and fires gamma rays into them, hoping to create the Incredible Hulk, that's, of course, a misuse of science. But, 200-Watt Studio sends in a super chat and says, this is a good sign. When you're addicted, you need to hit rock bottom before you can recover. The burning of books is rock bottom for a society. Now that this has begun for us, we can start to recover. I hope so. I do. I really do hope so. Because you know what? For the most part, I think we're on the verge of doing great things. We're more aware than ever. Like, hey, whether you believe in global warming or not, let's get plastic out of the oceans. How about that? Let's not let runoff, how much industrial runoff should be allowed into the water table? How much mercury? How about none? Arsenic? None. Let's do that. Let's be more aware of those things. We live in a closed, finite ecosystem. It's not like when you throw stuff away outside, like garbage, and you don't put it anywhere, you don't dispose of it. Where do you think it goes? It doesn't go anywhere. It comes right back to us. So we should, take care of these things. Figure out how to recycle. And there's a lot of people. There's a woman. I saw this is really interesting. There's a woman, I want to say, I don't know if it's in Nigeria. It's somewhere in Africa. A woman figured out a way they have a real plastic problem with single-use plastics, like plastic bottles and bags. And it's a woman in Africa, and again, entrepreneurial spirit. She figured out a way to take all of that extra plastic and make these really bricks, like like concrete bricks, but they're bricks made of plastic that are actually stronger than concrete bricks or bricks, whatever they mix it out of. And so she's taking single-use plastics, turning it into these bricks where they can build buildings that are much stronger than buildings made out of regular brick. And she started her own company, and I forget her name. I just read an article about her, but I was like, well, how cool is that? It's that kind of innovation that we need more of. She recognized a problem, like, okay, well, how can I fix this problem? And not only does she eliminate the overrunning of their society by single-use plastics, she's figured out an actual way to take that and turn it into something effective and turn it into a product that didn't exist before that's actually stronger than the previously existing thing. So pretty cool. You gotta love it. Let's see. China. Richard says China has gone from having 0 aircraft carrier ability to building a 90,000 ton super character, but we need 2 maths. Also, as an IDF veteran, that would be the Israeli Defense Force. As an IDF veteran, I've met people who have wanted to kill me for how I was born, but censorship never occurred to me, to be honest. We live in a strange place. By the way, I have an IDF shirt that I wear occasionally, which I love. That was the one thing I wanted when I was in Israel. I wanted an IDF shirt, and I wanted an Infected Mushroom CD. This was in the mid-aughts. This is 2005, and I got one. It was great. I love it. I got a double album of Infected Mushroom. It was, I guess you'd call it a techno band, but it was awesome. Yeah, and that new Chinese aircraft carrier is dope. It looks totally state-of-the-art, like great. Like that's all we need, but it's pretty cool. I saw a picture of it the other day. I'm like, oh, I want a model of that. Although what does that say about me? I don't know. Mr. Tickletrunk sends in a tip and says, people need to start bringing up the important difference between equity and equality. I agree. Equity dogma destroys all of the equality fought and bled to attain. Martin Luther King. We're one race, the human race. Absolutely. Math is universal. Kids have to show their work to learn. I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. Yeah. Anonymous said, soon it's going to be Curious George because he has a monkey, and then Paw Patrol because he's a cop, and then it's going to be Dixie Cups because it reminds us of the South. Anything I left out? No, eventually it's all up for grabs. It's all up for grabs, and it's kind of strange. Look, on one hand, let's be fair. I understand that. The Washington Redskins, for instance, what we did to the indigenous population of North America, genocide, pretty horrific. And we need to recognize that. We need to recognize what we've done, not what we've done, what the people that founded this country did. And it happened. Slavery existed for 400 years almost in this country. For a long time. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging this. Now, here's the thing. We didn't do it. Our ancestors did it. And it happened. And since then, we have to recognize that for Black Americans, has there ever truly been equality in this country? No, there has not. Come on. Our soldiers, our Black soldiers, the Tuskegee Airmen, the people that came back from World War II, they were not allowed to avail themselves of the GI Bill, even though some of them were experimented on. We got to acknowledge these things, that they happened. And that's the only way we're going to move forward. It's bad, but, I get it. I also get that these are things that we have to be mindful of. It's better, the Washington Redskins, let's change that name, the Washington football team. I don't think that there's any reason why. I have no problem with acknowledging things that are offensive or harmful, but we also, up to a point, are we going to make everything offensive and harmful? Is everywhere, I don't get up in the morning and start thinking about things that are offensive or harmful. I think about the work I have to do. I think about the bills that have to be paid. I think about Hot Toys figures that I want. I that's a joke, but I mean, sort of. And I isn't that what we all want? Don't we all want to live lives of where we can at least achieve our goals in life? And that's what we should all be helping each other do. I mean, yeah. Yeah, Curious George, they mentioned that in the article. Curious George out the door. Alexander Wilson says, would There's Something About Mary be made today? Oh, man. Probably not. And that's a fucking funny movie. And I mean, it's like it probably wouldn't get made. I mean, but what's weird is, what I think is even weirder is now we don't want to admit publicly that men and women lust after each other. I mean, we're now going to try and deny our biologies. I'm glad I'm not dating, and I'm glad I'm not in my 20s anymore, because that'd be a pain in the ass. I mean, like, may I kiss you? And if I kiss you, what if I touch you on your waist? Is that okay? I mean, do we have to? I can't even imagine. Probably not, though. Probably not, Alexander. Richard says, have you had a struggle session on Clubhouse yet? Oh, I've been in Clubhouse a couple times, more than once. I've been a moderator. I've been in the rooms. Boy, what an interesting place that is. I'm going to see how long it lasts. I'll be very curious. Wow, those hierarchies develop fast, don't they? Wow. Claudius says, Rob, anyone who tells you that the use of the word blaxploitation is racist is not qualified to call you out. As you know, I'm skeptical about who and how many people really want to cancel Dr. Seuss or Grease. Research is needed. No, I agree. I don't think that many people do. Honestly, I think most people understand. I think when you get people together they get it. It's just that what happens is, I think there's a very loud vocal minority who screams and yells and bitches and moans and comes after people. But I don't think it's that. I think most people are pretty okay. I don't know if you saw it. I did send you that link. I saw that it was a new link, but it was to Grease. I mean, the funny thing is Grease especially, first of all, based on a musical, and everybody in that movie has got to be 30. So the idea that it has anything realistic to say. And I've always kind of liked the idea that a squeaky clean girl like Sandy turns out to be a leather-clad harlot at the end. Tell me about it, stud. Who doesn't want to meet that? I do. She's still the sweet girl. Don't judge a book by its cover. Although we did, and it was awesome. Calvin Bose says, can you imagine if All in the Family was a new show today? The idiots in cancel culture would probably say that Carol O'Connor, Norman Lear is racist for writing and producing the show. Yeah, I think All in the Family might be lost on many of the culture warriors today. That show is not advocating Archie Bunker being the way he was, but there certainly were people like that. Yeah, that probably. I don't think that would probably fly. Michael Preston sends in a super chat and says, hi, Rob, I just watched Star Trek Beyond, and I just figured it out. Kirk, Spock, and Bones were almost a Family Guy parody of the original characters. Thoughts? Michael, amen. You and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. Everyone says, oh, Star Trek Beyond's pretty good. I'm like, it was? I don't, there's nothing about Star Trek Beyond I like, and I like Justin Lin. I mean, from the beginning, Kirk's like, I'm bored. We'll never make a difference out here. Why are we here? I don't, and then it's, I agree. They're a parody of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. Richard says, I get you, man. New Chinese military technology looks fucking cool, like Martian warships out of the expanse. The only wrinkle is that it might bomb me one day. Well, that's the problem. I mean, that's the problem. Why do the Chinese feel the need to build a 90,000-ton aircraft carrier? What are they going to do with it? Is that what we're going to do? We're going to start a new Cold War to do what? It's not exactly, our planet can't handle a modern war. How long would a modern war stay conventional? Plus, I mean, all the new military technology, swarm technology, hypersonic missiles, the swarm drone technology. I mean, it's scary stuff out there. I don't want to live in a world with cutting edge military technology run amok. I read too many books about the near future to know where that's going to lead. I don't want to be around. I don't want that to happen. It's scary, but it is cool. Mr. Tickletrunk says, since you mentioned infected mushroom, by any chance are you a Chipongle fan? I do not know Chipongle, but the name alone makes me want to know. I don't know. I will have to find out. I will have to know. Hang on. Let me use that newfangled contraption, the internet. Ooh. Well, I'm already in the release of their Carnival of Peculiarities EP, the seamless flow of 3 genre-defying tracks that will tickle your auditory receptors. Okay, you know what? I'm now a Chipongle fan. I'm in. I'm listening to Chipongle right now. I'm in. How do I not know this band? Psychedelic electronic music from England that formed in 96. How did I not know this band? Wow. Psychedelic trance electronic music. Oh, that's right up my alley. I'll bet I have some and just didn't know their name, to be honest. But yeah, I'm in. Count me in. Count me in, Mr. Tickle Trunk. I'm going to go listen to Chipongle right now. Ooh. Kevin sends a super chat and says, recently read that Christopher Nolan planned to feature the Joker and Two-Face in the 3rd film of the Dark Knight trilogy. Sadly, he had to end their arcs in the Dark Knight because of Heath's passing. Thoughts? I think that's probably true. He had to make changes and figure it out. Listen, I have to go on to another stream in an hour. I'm going on to the Zod Rider show. So I want to thank all of you for being here. I'm going to bring this episode to a close, episode number 632. What a rollicking conversation this was. I want to thank everybody for what a great chat, what great letters. I love all you people. This is the best. This is the best group. We have the best audience on YouTube here. We really do. And if you want to write me letters, you can go to the Burnettwork.net website and you can send me letters free of charge. You just have to write them. And I want to thank everybody for generously supporting the channel via super chats and tips. I very much appreciate it. By the way, if you want, hit the subscribe button. You know, the whole what am I supposed to say as a YouTuber? So you can subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we would love that because that would be awesome. So yeah, hey, please do that. I want to thank you. Let's see. Real Salvo says, as someone who lived in China, expansion is very much on Beijing's mind. They're not our friends, however much they claim it. Oh, I agree. They are not our friends. And by the way, we basically ceded Africa to them. They basically have gone in and for mineral rights, they give everybody what they want in Africa, put them to work, whatever. They've taken all those mineral rights. We messed up. And we will be paying that price for a long time. But you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Chipongle was best described by Duncan Trussell, says Mr. Tickle Trunk. Their music is so fucking cool, but you need 3 synthesizers and a fucking spaceship to do it. Hoo-hoo, I'm into that. Count me in. Well, that sounds good to me. But yeah, Real Salvo, you're right. But on that note, I'm going to end this one. I want to say thank you to my moderating staff. I want to say thank you to Mike Bodden. I want to say thank you to the Richard, who's throwing a pretty cool dance party. We've got Louise Sparrow here today as a moderator. Louise X Sparrow. Bunyan Snipe is here. Joshua Levesque is here. You know what? I'm going to make Joshua Levesque help me plan my 666 show. I know he's going to love that. Aren't you, Josh? I know. I can tell. Greg Smith is here. And I want to thank all the moderating staff. Again, the moderators make this community what it is. So hello, moderators. Thank you for all the work that you do. And go find out what the Richard's doing over on the Post-Geek Singularity Facebook page, the Whining About Movies Facebook page, which is coming back, not tonight. It's just Elizabeth has been buried. We've been so tough. I'm hoping to bring back Whining About Movies because everybody's asking. We're now into a second month. We only did like 2 Viewers' Choice movies. Lame. We are lame. But we're going to come back in a big way. It's just been buried. Work. Remember, tomorrow, any of you who are listening, the Toronto Film Channel, I believe, let me look. Let me make sure. I can make sure this is correct. Yes, okay. The TorontoFilmChannel.com. They're always playing movies. They will be running, here, I'm going to put it in the live chat. They will be running Tango Shalom tomorrow between noon and 9 p.m. So it's going to be running, they'll probably run 4 times between noon and 9 p.m. There is the Toronto Film Channel, and you can watch Tango Shalom. I think from anywhere in the world. You can log on and see Tango Shalom on the Toronto Film Channel which is pretty cool, Blame Canada. So check that out. That is tomorrow from noon to 9 p.m. I think it'll probably air 4 times because the movie's about 115 minutes long. So there you go, our little low-budget movie where it's the little movie that could. So check it out. Again, that's the movie I produced and edited and post-supervised and VFX supervised. So check it out. Tango Shalom, which, by the way, won Best Comedy and Best Actor at the Montreal Independent Film Festival. I think it's up for an award at this Toronto Independent Film Festival. I think. I don't know if we are going to win, but we might. And there might be some exciting news to announce about a release in Canada in many cities. So I'll be able to tell you that later when it's more locked down. But it's looking pretty good. And on that note, I will say, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say to all of you, have a better day. And thanks for being here. I'll be back on the John Campea Show tomorrow. I will be on Az's channel for Hot Toys. And then I'll be doing Robservations tomorrow, probably at 3. So